Welcome once again to the Goddesses of Gore. Well, at least the men are outnumbered this time anyway, so it truly is the Goddesses of Gore. Hello there, I'm Tom Connors, and with me, as always, is Miss Susan Layton from 1428 Elm. How are
Hey,
you doing?
Tom.
Besides dropping your microphone, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm so prepared here. Hey, random, everybody that's here in the chat, thanks for joining us.
That's right.
And we've got, tonight we have Molly Henry, one of our writers at 1428 Elm. She does a lot of cool lists for us. Her latest we're going to be talking about in a bit. But Molly, why don't you say hi to everybody and tell them exactly what you do for us?
Hello. As you mentioned, I am a contributor. Just started a couple months ago with you guys, 1428 Elm. And I write for a few other sites, and I recently was accepted as a Tomato Meter approved critic.
Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
We got to do that, Mecca.
Yes.
In the other corner, we have everybody that, is a regular on the show.
He almost is now, yeah.
Yeah, he is. We've got Luke Lucas. Hey, Luke.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, if I don't get like a link for the video at a certain point, I'm just like, come on. Ain't I coming back this week? Come on. I'm pesky.
Yeah, I've been thinking about bugging you to maybe come on one of the regular shows too here one of these days. We'll have to see. But anyway, yeah, we don't have a ton of news to talk about because it's a holiday coming up. But we got a few things planned for everybody, I think, here. We got some surprises for next time around too, and I'll bring that up later.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think everybody will be digging what you're gonna put down.
So yeah, first of all, you wanted to talk about some Easter eggs. Oddly enough, it's not Easter. But
yeah. Okay, for those of you that are, immersed in the horror world, you'll know, or even in, regular cinematic universe, nowadays DVDs are like movies unto themselves. They're full-blown productions. Like the Halloween Blu-ray is coming out soon. It's got featurettes, 5 deleted scenes. God only knows what else is involved in it. It's like a Cecil B. DeMille production. Well, this Easter egg madness, while it's cool, can sometimes get out of hand. And what I'm talking about is, for those of you that still follow The Walking Dead, Rick's death, we're moving past it, or trying to at least. There were people coming out and saying that within that world, there were several Easter eggs. And those Easter eggs were pointing toward Evil Dead. They had all the bells and whistles with it, the IMG images, and they saw a dirty book in a corner. So it's in a cabin. It must be the Necronomicon. And we all know that Greg Nicotero has worked with Sam Raimi and Rob Tappert, and we know he's in that world. And that's all fine and dandy. But then all of a sudden it started to snowball, and then everybody was seeing Easter eggs everywhere. And it's like, it's just crazy. So Luke wrote a very fine article about that ridiculousness, and very much a parody of it. And Luke, why don't you tell our audience exactly what you did with this? Because it's kind of genius. You kind of spoke to someone else, if you get my drift with that. Another publication.
Yeah, because at this point, it's reached a level where with the Easter eggs and with apparently what we're supposed to be seeing on The Walking Dead, people are focusing on that a little bit more than they are focusing on the actual show, and certain parts that might have been kind of overlooked. And for me, that was the part where Rick shot 2 boxes of dynamite and survived. He was very close proximity. You could see the explosion ripple over his face. His eyes kind of blinked because there was an explosion coming, and nothing happened to him. And in fact, we find out that he got blown away like several hundred yards, and down. So he actually like went down in elevation, landed on the side of a river, and like nothing else happened to him. He was a little bit more dazed, but that was it. And to me, that's like bigger than an Easter egg. But people kind of just like glossed over that part, and they were excited about during that episode. He apparently visited the cabin from the Evil Dead and found the Necronomicon. And what I compared it to was like, okay, fine. If we really want to go into the world of the Evil Dead, that explosion was Rick's rift. Like at the end of the Evil Dead 2, he doesn't want to go through this rift, but it opens up and it sucks him in, and there actually is no helicopter. There's no Alpha or Jadis like taking him anywhere. He just gets sucked into this rift. And then from there, I just kind of like went on a roll about how some of the characters that they've brought on since then. Well, Magna, I know that she has like a whole huge role to play in the comics, but she's kind of their Kelly Maxwell. And they need somebody running around there like Pablo. So maybe that's what the Jadis character was, just somebody to get him through the rift without killing him. And then the only thing that could really kill Ash was the Kandarian dagger. And the only thing, you know, we know dynamite can't kill him. He's kind of had zombie blood in his blood. The only thing that could hurt him was the rebar. So maybe the Kandarian dagger is actually made out of rebar. And then from there, like in this past episode, like I started taking it further. Like if we're gonna focus on that more than the episode, I wanted to talk about Daryl's dog, because Daryl, we found Daryl, who is apparently living in a river and in one of the biggest open air camps that's completely safe that I've ever seen on the show. And he has a dog, and his dog is named Dog. And the only other person I know that's ever been, the only character that I know that had a dog named Dog was Lieutenant Columbo. So I wrote in my recap this week, like, well, obviously Daryl, The Walking Dead, is in the same universe as Lieutenant Columbo, because they're sharing like dog names. They're sharing like all the tropes.
Easter egg, yeah.
that's what that is. So, and it started out like on one personal blog, and then that started to get shared, where somebody had put these images up. Even though in previous seasons we've gone through Rick and the group like hiding in cabins that looked very familiar to the one that you have up right now. They've been in cabins before. They've been in camps. They've been in weird things. But it was like all of a sudden now the Easter eggs are becoming important, and I think that's because the story got a little bit batshit crazy in how they removed Rick. I don't have a problem with them not killing Rick off, but they're basically making him invincible like Ash is. Like he's some kind of prophesied one,
right,
and he's going to have his own three season or 3 movie arc on whatever these things are. And yeah, you know, the actual show, since he's gone, it's not half bad, but it's probably too little too late. And maybe if people would have focused on the story more than the little things that they're finding in it, because to me that's a problem. If you're talking more about the Easter eggs that you find in it instead of talking about the story,
right,
like I don't know how good your show is anymore.
Yeah, that's the first thing I would think too. Like, okay, so you're taking all this time to distract us from watching the episode. You're kind of saying, oh, focus on all this background stuff, focus over here and over there. Yeah, that's kind of worrisome.
And just the way they, even within the dream sequences, that didn't have anything to do with the Easter eggs. But the dream sequences that Rick has when he's passing out and almost being bitten by walkers, but not being bit by walkers.
So would it be the evil Walking Dead or the Walking Evil Dead?
It would be the evil Walking Dead, I think.
Molly, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, it's kind of funny because I was just thinking when you were saying how a lot of people are focusing on the Easter eggs more so than the story. That reminds me a lot of what's that show called? Riverdale. Like That show just recently had the throwback where they had the they played Dream Warriors and stuff, and it's like people are focusing way more on that than the actual story. And I feel like that's a gimmick that a lot of shows are doing to get more attention.
Yeah, and it's like Stranger Things did a lot of nostalgia in the first season of the show and the second season of the show, and people are just taking that the wrong way. And it's like, instead of trying to create the environment or have something that's cool, we're just going to put these Easter eggs in the show and people will talk about that instead.
And it's a shame because this is actually getting hailed as one of The Walking Dead's best years, best seasons. And it's getting overshadowed by what I think is all this nonsense.
Mm. So they're saying Ash fucked up so bad that the dead are walking because of him now, and yeah.
Yeah, I guess they're trying to make it like one of the people in the chat, I think, Byron Dunbar asked, so the Evil Dead and the Walking Dead are in the same universe? Yeah. I guess they're trying to make it that way. I don't really think it is. I mean, I guess they could have crossed over if they wanted to, because I remember there was some talk about that, and a fan actually made a video of The Walking Dead and Ash versus Evil Dead where they mash them up. But yeah, I guess we're supposed to think that now.
I mean, and we could pitch that show like right now, like from season 3 of Ash versus Evil Dead, when the old ones get out and all hell breaks loose and there are deadites everywhere. I guess that's what happened while Rick was passed out in his coma.
Yeah, or wait a minute, wasn't he with the lost people and the writing on the lighthouse wall?
Yeah, and I made that joke too, because he woke up on the side of like a river and it was just like lost, and I'm like, what is he trying to find himself? His name written on a lighthouse, like Jacob's lighthouse is one of the chosen ones.
Right. And DB Cooper, yeah, we're not saying that. We're just saying that some people think they're in the same universe, and we're basically talking about how ridiculous all these Easter eggs are. It's like it gets to a point when it becomes ridiculous, and it's just something to take up space to fill copy on a dead news day. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
It's just to have some fun. Like, I brought up the example of one of the earlier Easter eggs was when, we got to say, Jess Reed, thank you for the $5 super chat. See you all in 2 weeks. My wife is home after a year in Turkey. I love you, Mead, and see you soon. Awesome. So have a happy Thanksgiving with your wife. Glad she's home. All right. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Like the interview I did with Adam Marcus, he talked a little bit more about the Easter egg from Evil Dead and Jason Goes to Hell. But his whole thing was, in his eyes, Jason was a deadite because that's the only way it made sense to him. Now, legally, no, it wasn't true. But in the end, all it really was an Easter egg, just like all the stuff in Pixar movies. And
well, wait a minute. Sam Raimi, if I remember correctly, did come out and corroborate with what Adam Marcus said.
Well, they did work together on that because that's how he got the book in the first place.
Yeah.
That would have been such a dream, like, mashup of films. I wish that they had been able to do that.
Oh, the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash.
Yes, that would have been so
amazing. The funny thing was, that wasn't even in his mind at the time either. It just happened to be that way.
And they did try to get that started. And, for whatever reason, when you have 3 franchises together and it's all about the money, talks kind of broke down because Robert Englund was all for it. The other people were too. But once you get a bunch of lawyers in a room and you start talking, rights and legalities, that tends to put a damper on things.
Pretty much. Well, and you were saying that what happened was you said Bruce said this, or who said this, that once New Line or whoever found out that Robert Englund wanted Ash to kill Freddy Krueger, they hung up.
Pretty much. That's what Campbell always says. That, basically it was a deadline after they were on talks, and it was like, Ash is going to kill Freddy, and then it's like click and there's dead, there's nothing there. So yeah, it was an impasse. And I doubt that's ever going to come to fruition.
That smells like a Midnight's Edge video. I'm gonna have to pick your brain about that sometime.
Okay.
Or find that interview.
Oh, it's all over. I mean, that's like one of his convention gold stories. He's got a few of those that he tells the same thing at different conventions. Now, when he does Last Fan Standing, it's Bubba Hotep and the brute suit and all that stuff. So yeah, we can probably find it.
I'll have to get Tyler working on a why we never got an Ash versus Evil Dead video soon. So anyway, but anything else anybody has to say about The Walking Dead before we move on with that?
Well, somebody, Captain Robert April wanted to know, would it kill them to use the word zombie? Luke, you're our resident expert. What do you?
I mean, it's walkers, and we've heard biters, and I think now the newbies are saying they called them psychos or sickos. I don't know why they won't use zombie. I think I've read a few places that they like different reasonings behind why they don't want to use the word zombie. I
Probably
don't remember.
They couldn't copyright them otherwise.
Could be.
Especially
in the comics.
I will give them the benefit of the doubt that I think the original idea was an homage to the Romero quote unquote zombies, because Romero has never called them zombies. They've always been ghouls to him.
Well, yeah, I thought that the author of the comic book also wanted to avoid calling them zombies.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think that was the initial concept, is to pay homage to Romero in that way.
Yeah, I had always heard that The Walking Dead existed in like a universe where the concept of zombies didn't even exist. So they wouldn't have known that word, because we know it because it's in movies and TV all the time. But
right. Well, I think the reason it actually bothers Romero is, especially at the time when he did Night of the Living Dead, zombie was associated more with, voodoo and them kind of things. And then now I think they kind of see it as more on PC. But anyway, it's just, in a way, it's just like ghouls works too, or walkers. That's fine too. I don't really see the difference. To me, it doesn't really matter. The Living Dead is the best way to probably say it, but yeah.
Well, Byron Dunbar told us that Romero did call them zombies, just not in Night of the Living Dead. It started in Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, but that was a response because that was why everybody started calling them.
Yeah.
But to him, he did not. Basically, if you watch one interview with him, he says something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, that the time he did it, the word zombie wasn't even associated with the Living Dead per se, in a way that he was presenting them. The way he saw it, it was still an association more with voodoo, like I think Mecca said or Molly said. So yeah, it was just, I think to him, he didn't even think to call him that at that time, was the whole thing. And, outside of, I think, one or two references throughout the whole series, they aren't called that. So. Right. Yeah. It's sickos. Wait, what? Zombie isn't a free name. I mean, the Caribbean term, the term is much older than those movies. Ghouls are not zombies at all. Right. Well, and that's the thing. The zombie is supposed to be something different. And if you call them anything but zombies, you can probably copyright them, because zombies is something you can't copyright. That's my point.
And Love tells us zombies come from African folklore.
Okay. All right. Sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, like voodoo. So yeah.
Either way.
And that was the whole thing behind zombies, is that they had a master, in quotation marks, that, was the person that was a necromancer that could raise them from the dead.
Right.
And they forever beholden. And I think ghouls are more about eating of the flesh, things of that nature.
Well, like the word zombie, doesn't it kind of imply, like you're just saying, Susan, more of a drone or somebody who's being controlled, or their mind is gone, but they're still there, as opposed to the Living Dead / ghoul, whatever. That's where I don't think Romero, that's what I think he was saying anyway, was he never made that connection before, to where until later on down the road when people started calling them zombies.
Captain Robert Haverhill. So where does the Cranberries song fit in? Well,
much later. That was in the 90s, man.
Yeah, the 90s. We're not there yet.
I did sing that at the beginning. That's my fault.
Well, I think, if anybody, does anybody have anything else to add about Easter eggs or anything about that craziness?
I love them, but I think I get what you guys are saying. People are taking it way too far. Like, oh, this means something.
Well, like
yeah.
with anything in life, Tom, you can conjure up connections to anything.
Oh yeah.
It's like you can do that with any movie. And just like Luke illustrated about Columbo, we can do that with everything. You can see parallels in the Golden Girls to Sabrina, the chilling adventures of Sabrina if you try real hard. It's nothing really that involves a lot of deep effort in it, but it's just, it's one of those things we just wanted to bring up, because Luke's article actually played really well off of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And trust me, I'm having fun looking for this stuff every week now. Like, oh, look, here it is.
Yeah, now we're not focusing on the show, which is kind of sad.
Right.
Yeah.
Now speaking of articles, we got one from Molly, it looks like here, that ties into Thanksgiving, and you wanted to discuss some cannibal movies.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I wanted to do something fun for Thanksgiving, because when you think about it, there isn't a ton of Thanksgiving specific horror movies. Like the only one I can think of off the top of my head is like Blood Rage. So I wanted to. I was thinking, oh yeah, I've never seen that one though. But I like the two things that I think of when I think of Thanksgiving are family and food. So I naturally, my disturbed brain went to families of cannibals. So I picked 5. Obviously, I had to do the Sawyers from Texas Chainsaw Massacre because they are the most famous cannibal family in horror. It's impossible to not discuss them. There's also the oh man, now I have to pull up my own list. The Parkers from We Are What We Are. I almost said We Are Still Here. Different movie. We Are What We Are. This was actually my first time watching that one too for this article because I wanted to know what I was talking about, obviously. And then I also did a search because it talks about like the physical effects of cannibalism on the human body. And so I Googled it and I made a joke on my Instagram, like, oh man, I feel bad for the NSA agent who's looking through my search history right now, reading about cannibalism. And then the Odettes from Wrong Turn, which finding their last name was more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Because really they're all fun, but the only really good one is the first one. Hope no one's going to hate me for that, but in my opinion. And of course they have like, they're cannibals and they're also like inbred, backwoods, West Virginia. So they have a lot of different things going for them that make them entertaining to watch. And this one I couldn't find a last name for, but Justine and Alexia from Raw, which if anyone hasn't seen this movie, I highly recommend it. It's a French film. If you watch it with your family or talk about it with your family, you can make yourself sound very cultured because you can say you're into foreign films. And this one, it's one of those where they mix cannibalism with like a coming of age tale, which I'm always into horror movies that mix some kind of horror element with coming of age stuff. And it's also a film that had a lot of hype because of the cannibalism and people were like throwing up and passing out in the theater and stuff. For horror fans, it's really not that gross, but for film festival people that aren't expecting it, I can see that. And then the last one, this is my personal favorite, The Tutmans from Blood Diner. This movie is really hard to find. I saw it like years ago back when FearNet was still around. They had it streaming. And I watched it 3 times in a month because I was obsessed with it. It's an unofficial sequel to Blood Feast about 2 brothers who are killing all these people and serving them in their diner, human meat in their diner, while also collecting female body parts to try to create a new body for a goddess they're trying to resurrect. It's super campy and hilarious and has amazing amounts of gore, and it's terrible acting. Like I am picturing a scene where one of the brothers repeatedly tries to run a guy over with his van and the guy just will not die. and it's
Now that you say
absolutely
that, I think I may have seen it. Like
it's so funny. But sadly, like, it's not streaming anywhere. If you want to watch it, you have to buy the Blu-ray. But if you trust my opinion, I highly recommend it. If you don't know me, still trust my opinion and buy it.
Right. Well,
but yeah, it's just something fun. And I mean, who doesn't love horror cannibals?
right.
Like, they're so fun.
Well, and I got to say, I guess if I had to pick one of those out of the bunch, I'd have to go with the Sawyers.
Yeah.
What about you guys, Mecca?
Yeah, Sawyers. They're so recognizable. I mean, everybody knows Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And of course, it's creepy as hell, too.
Susan?
I'm actually, while I looked at that, I was thinking about one of my personal favorites that's not on the list, but it's in theme with Thanksgiving. This was a wonderful film in 1987 that basically played in a few thousand screens, and it rarely gets mentioned, but to me, it is one of the best cannibal films ever. Little film called Parents, directed by Bob Balaban, starring Randy Quaid.
I was just going to say, that's the one with Randy Quaid, yep.
Mary Beth Hurt. And I went and saw that, and I'm not a squeamish person at all. I mean, gore doesn't faze me. I don't know what that says about me. Probably nothing good. But I went and saw that in the theater, and I had to see it like 5 or 6 times after that because it was kind of gross, but it was really spooky, and it was told through the eyes of this kid. Yeah. For those of you that haven't seen it,
50s or 60s or something like that.
Yeah, basically takes place in the 50s.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah.
And they're like, your typical Beaver Cleaver, June Cleaver family. So you think. And they have this meal that's like mystery meat, and it's all about this kid discovering the horrible truth about his parents.
Well, the sad part is the poster gives everything away. But
yeah. I mean, and for those of you that might not know Bob Balaban, if you're a fan of Christopher Guest's movies, like Mighty Wind and Best in Show, he is one of Chris Guest's players. He's always in their movies. And he was in Altered States, which is a brilliant film. He played William Hurt's best friend in that. So if you get the chance, look for this film on your streaming services. It's really well done.
Yeah. I think it's on either Hulu or Netflix or something like that. I was gonna say, because I watched it not too long ago, but it's been a little while. I've seen it when I was a kid too. But yeah, for a movie that has a poster that's not like painted poster for the time, it's all live actors and stuff, but it gives the whole movie away, but it's still one of the most intriguing ones. Here, I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah. What about you, Luke? What do you like?
I mean, I gotta go with the Sawyers. They're just the way the whole series went along about how, the family that sticks together and eats people, like, stays together, especially like where it ended up in like 3D in Texas Chainsaw 3D, where like now he started finding other family members that didn't even know they were related. And there's that really touching moment where she like flips him his chainsaw before he kills somebody. And it's like, I've always had, and I think this says something about me way more than the Gore thing says about you. I've always had a special place in my heart for the Sawyers.
Yeah, I also love that that's considered a touching moment, because I actually totally agree. But I think that says there's something wrong with their heads there.
Yep.
I will defend Texas Chainsaw 3D. I like that he has a niece. And I like that he won't kill family members. I know a lot of people, even Adam didn't like some of the things they did with his script. Adam Marcus, the writer, he didn't direct the movie, but he wrote that. But I still like that one. I'm sorry.
No, I like that too. And it has that really, I mean, there's that one kill where somebody thinks they're saved and the cop mistakes her for the bad guy and shoots her in the head. I liked that movie a lot when I saw it, and I was not prepared to like it as much. And to get that stuff out of it, like, oh, look, they're teaming up.
And just in his defense, I will say this, if you haven't listened to my interview, I think I said this on the show before, but his original script did not take place now. it took place in the 90s like it should have.
Yeah, that was my one issue with it. Like, I love that movie, but the timeline did not make any sense
It was
whatsoever.
supposed to, yes, it was supposed to take place in the 70s, and he wrote it thinking they were going to have like a $30 million budget, and it ended up being like half that or less. I think it was like a lot less than that. Yeah, and some of the lines they changed. He's like, "I did not write 'Do Your Thing,' cuz."
I still would take that movie over Leatherface, though.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I like the second one the best. I will say I got a guilty pleasure for the second Chainsaw Massacre, but like I think Mecca and I said this the other night. If it wasn't on one of the shows, it was in private. You know, we respect the original though for its, you know, for what it is though. But the second one, for some reason, is just a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, Dennis Hopper, 2 chainsaws.
Hell yeah.
That says it all.
Well, and it's just such it's almost B-movie quality in some ways because it's kind of funny. And I remember this is a really horrible story, but I'm here at my mom's after this or during this whole move, and I remember watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 with my mother on it was Channel 2 here in Colorado, which was kind of like a syndicated, sort of chopped for broadcast version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2.
Like it'd be 10 minutes long.
Yeah, well, no, it was a full movie, but they just chopped out like the really bad stuff. And I remember watching this. I was in 2nd grade when we watched this on TV. And we both had boots that were exactly like, I can't remember the character's name in the movie, but like the main girl in the movie who's there's I guess she's their survivor.
Isn't it Slim or something?
I can't remember. It's been so many years since I've seen it. But my mother and I both had denim boots exactly like hers in that movie. And it was kind of one of those weird moments that just stick with you for some reason because I saw it like at such a young age. And I don't remember that much of the movie other than, okay, cannibal chili, denim boots, got it. I don't know. It's just such a weird sort of movie. And I think that's why that movie sticks out for me. That might be why for me anyway.
Well, I love it because it's like the opposite of the original.
Yeah.
It has all the money in the world. You can see everything. It's brightly lit like a Hollywood movie. It doesn't take itself seriously.
Yeah.
It's chock full of black humor. It's, like I said, the exact opposite of what the first film is.
Yeah.
And I love it for being that.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I almost feel it's got that B-movie quality because it doesn't take itself too seriously and it has funny elements and it's very ridiculous in a lot of ways.
Well, if you wouldn't have had the first one, obviously the second one you probably couldn't have set up because, I love the second one. It's got some of the best gross out scenes, but you're laughing so hard that it's like
God damn it, Bubba, you fucked up my plate.
Yeah. The whole thing about chili, I didn't eat chili after that for a long time. And then the guy,
more than one person.
oh my God. And then the guy at the beginning, and I forget what character it was, and he's taking a hanger and he's burning it.
That's the brother.
Yeah.
Oh my
That's
God.
what I was saying. God damn it, Bubba, you fucked up my plate again.
It's like it's the grossest
when he
thing.
gets him in the head. Yeah.
It's so funny, and you're laughing. And I really, for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all the sequels, I do like 2, but I have to say I do like the original because when Tobe Hooper made it, it was just like out of nowhere, and you're like, did this really happen? Because I remember when I saw it, all the hype was, we had midnight movies back then. And all the hype was, you'd hear these radio commercials where, people passed out and, people were throwing up in the theater and it's real and it happened. And I was like, God, holy crap, I want to see this movie. And then when I finally saw it, I had to sit and think, well, is this really based on a true story? Which we know Ed Gein, yeah. But I'm like, did this really happen in Texas? Because it's that whole handheld shaky cam stuff. And I just love it for the sheer inventiveness of that. And if we wouldn't have had that, we wouldn't have something like the Blair Witch.
Right.
which blatantly steals camera work from that.
Which I hate the Blair Witch, but you're totally right. And like I said, that's why I love the second one, because it's not the first one. It's not a retread. He didn't do the same old thing over again. He knew what he was doing, and I know it has a cult following. So Molly, we got your answer already, kind of, unless you want to embellish a little bit more on that one.
No, I mean, I love all of them, obviously, which is why I put them on the list. But I think just because of the novelty of them, and it's like, it was, when I saw that movie, it was so unexpected. I probably have to go with the Tetmans, just because they're so ridiculous. And that movie is ridiculous. Like, I mean, Blood Feast is ridiculous, but Blood Diner takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it does. It's your quintessential B movie. You know, the kind of thing you want to turn off all the lights and just watch with delight in your house. You know, there's so many good movies out there for Thanksgiving. I mean, they're not blatantly Thanksgiving, but I mean, I see OG Spock Love mentions Soylent Green. I love that.
It's
It's people. I mean, you have Charlton Heston, who's prone to histrionics anyway, and then you have him yelling, "Oh my God, it's people!" And the sad thing and the scary thing about Soylent Green is the fact that here we are, the 21st century, and sort of what they were saying there has come true. Climate, all that stuff. But we aren't eating people, thank God, as far as I know. But yeah.
Well, you never know with all these processed foods.
I seen this article. God, it had to be about a year better now. They did DNA tests on hot dogs. And let's put it this way, only 2 hot dogs passed with actually having the meat in it that they said they did. And they actually found a percentage of human meat in some of them. So, yeah.
Oh, no.
Well, that's just, I'm sure I doubt anybody's legitimately like killing people and throwing them in there. But it's, you know, if somebody loses a finger and shit, what are you going to do?
Well, I mean,
So you're saying we're already cannibals?
Yeah. And Luke, you said the Sawyers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you gave your answer. So yeah, if you're having some fun this holiday season, you want to gross out your relatives, there's a good list of cannibal movies to do so. And hell, even if you just have a Leatherface marathon, there's more than enough of those.
Yes.
But there's some other choices there you may not have seen, and we can thank Molly for putting that together. So thank you much.
Well, thank you.
And next up on the list, you did mention it a little bit earlier, Susan, but let's talk about it a little bit more. Halloween, not only it just keeps breaking records, and is it now is it the highest grossing horror film yet? Or I know it didn't have a big as opening as it, but I'd have to look and see where they're at on the board. I know it's grossed quite a bit. I got to bring that up, but tell us what's going on with the Blu-ray.
Well, basically with the Blu-ray that's coming out, you have a lot of bells and whistles, like I said. The most notable is 5 deleted scenes. Now, apparently one of those scenes, and I think it's on our front page, Joey wrote about it, my co-editor, one of those scenes pays homage to Psycho, and it's blatant. I mean, you can't miss it. It is like, you know, right out of a page of the movie, which is sort of meta in and of itself. Jamie Lee being Janet Leigh's daughter, all that good stuff. And that's the big thing, is these 5 deleted scenes. You've got a featurette. There's a whole list of things in that Blu-ray that really is going to delight fans of the franchise and people that have seen the movie. So if you're looking for that gift for someone, I urge you to go and get your reservation in now. Reserve those copies, because there's already people out there that have done that. And I imagine by the time it's released, a lot of those copies are going to be gone.
Well, it is considered #1 as far as slasher movies. Let's see. I don't think it beat it yet, though.
No, I just pulled up the box office mojos for that. It looks like it is at 700 million worldwide.
327 domestic. I was looking more domestic, but
okay, yeah.
But it's getting there. It won't make that much by its all time. It's all said and done, but it's done 251 million worldwide. For a movie like this, that's insane. It's made almost as much as the entire franchise has to this point. I didn't really like the movies much.
Didn't it only cost 10 mil to make?
Oh yeah. So it's way in the bank. Yeah. This is all like pure profit at this point. I mean, even if you take away everything, they still brought home a good $100 million easy. Gosh, so yeah, I want to check it out again. I almost thought about going to see it again to give it another shot, but I know Luke liked it a little better than I did. Did you get a chance to see it, Molly?
Yes, I did. For the most part, I think it's great and I love it. I just think that it couldn't really decide what tone of the film wanted to be throughout. Like, I feel like sometimes it was really funny and sometimes it was super dark, and they tried to throw in a little bit too many different like subplots in there. But as a whole, I mean, to me, Michael Myers, I love all the films. So, I mean, I even love Resurrection. I don't care. I know it's crap, but I love it. So I'm always going to love it no matter what, but it definitely had some issues.
And Mecca, you felt about it pretty much the same way I did. I know that. Susan, did you get a chance to see it yet?
No, I'm a bad horror fan. No, I have not. Yeah, I have a big aversion to seeing movies like that where I can't concentrate because of extraneous noise and shit. So I'm going to see it. I will probably pick up the Blu-ray.
Right.
And enjoy it in the comfort of my home.
Well, maybe somebody will send you a preview copy. Hint, hint. Mecca, did you want to talk about it quick, though?
Yeah, it was very much, I guess like a couple of different movies. You know, it didn't know if it was going to be like more like the Rob Zombie stuff, or sometimes it was a lot like the original. I don't know. It certainly wasn't my favorite. I think I gave it maybe about a 6 out of 10 or something.
Yeah, I think I was about in the same place. And like I said, they could have lost that whole teenage thing. They didn't even need to give Laurie a daughter. Or if they did, make her the fucking babysitter. And not only that, fix the ending by making it to where you don't need... Okay, spoilers by now. Plug your ears if you don't want to hear this. But to fix the ending, all you had to do is get rid of that goddamn doctor.
Yes.
And make Laurie realize that Mike don't give a fuck about her. And she's prepared all these years for nothing. Mike doesn't care. He just wants to go after another babysitter. So that just turns her, and she goes after him. Like literally tracks his ass down and goes after him Linda Connor style. Or Linda Hamilton style. I meant to say Sarah Connor. You guys knew who I fucking meant.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would have been the better ending to me. And then have the babysitter, of course, going after. It could have been her granddaughter. Fine, that's cool. But either way, then you turn Laurie into the actual Terminator going after him because she realized she wasted her life for, being in fear for nothing because Michael don't give a shit.
Well, they had a different ending planned.
I hope that's the original ending. That'd be funny.
Yeah, they came out with, they kind of leaked it, obviously, after the movie's been out, that it was a very different ending from what played in the theaters. And
we know it was reshot. That's fake.
Yeah. And why they did that, and I believe this is true because I do know the ending, and I do know the story. Just haven't seen it, but I've read about it, so I know the spoilers. Doesn't bother me. But it's
nothing to really spoil.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I mean, with the ending there, they probably deliberately did that, and Jason Blum will probably say, "Oh no, we didn't," but they wanted to leave a door open because now we're going to get a sequel.
Well, I have a feeling that maybe Laurie died in the original ending. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
you know what? You guys vamp, and I'll find the article that says
I think
that.
that's one thing that it felt like it was setting it up for, but I could be wrong.
But I mean, how many times did he kill her already?
That's just it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just kind of, to me, it felt like, okay, they're setting her up to get killed and her daughter has to take over, blah, blah, blah. Because I got real pissed at the movie after that twist. Like, I was already kind of not comfortable in my seat at that point because I was sick of watching the Greatest Hits record. And it's like, what was the point of doing all this if you're just going to keep redoing all the stuff from before? But anyway,
Here it is. Here it is, courtesy of Cinema Blend. In the original idea that they wanted to do, basically this is what happened. Lori goes into another room, leaves her granddaughter and her daughter under the bed. Sorry, spoiler alert, everybody.
Well, this
so then what happens is she was supposed to go into a closet. So they were basically doing a callback to the original. Only this time it's a ruse. She's not there. When Michael continues to look for her in the hall, she jumps out and stabs him with a screwdriver. And it's like over and over again. And then Karen and Allison climb out of the window. They see the fight going on from outside. Michael drops his knife, grabs Lori by the throat, lifts her off the ground as she stabs him one final time in the neck. Are you ready, Tom?
Yep.
He drops her lifeless to the floor.
I knew it.
And then Allison and Karen would go back into the house to confirm that she is dead. So basically, they were going to kill Laurie Strode off, which is interesting because maybe they did that thinking we lured Jamie Lee back for this one. She might not come back for a sequel, so let's kind of make it that there's no way she could come back. But then again, it is the Halloween universe. Even though she died in other movies, she's back for this one. So yeah.
You could be right. I think it's more so a Wrath of Khan thing. And what I mean is when they killed Spock originally, it was supposed to be for good.
Yeah.
And then as they got going, according to Leonard Nimoy, he's like, well, you never know. This might actually become something, because he was actually getting into it. Because at first he thought this is definitely going to be the last one, so they can kill me off, get me done and over with. I don't want to come back if they do have another one. And then he started realizing, well, if they do, we're having so much fun, I don't want to stop the party, so we'll leave a few things open just in case. It's kind of the same thing here. I figured that's what it was. The audience, because the original report was the audience didn't like the ending. Well, what else can you do in a movie like this at the ending other than that doctor twist, if you're going to already leave that in, is kill Laurie? That's the only thing you can do. So I knew that's what it had to be. And the way they set it up in the movie, that's the way it's set up. And then all of a sudden she's still alive after you think she's dead. So it's like, yeah, it's fair. It plays out similar to what you just said, but not exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is even that scene where he's like looking for her in the closets. So you can see the part of it was filmed. Right.
And yeah, but I think instead of being under the bed, I think they're already in the basement. I think that's the only difference.
Exactly.
And the whole thing that what you guys just said, obviously, that's like an homage to Scream mixed in with an homage to the original film, where she stabs him in the neck is obviously an homage to the original film. And then the fact that she jumps out of a different area at him while he's looking in the closet for her is like an homage right out of Scream 3, actually, I think.
Yeah.
And then like
fun of themselves at that point. Sorry, go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, but just like, even though I liked it, I still do believe it is a pretty faithful remake to Halloween Part 2.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, yeah, okay. It's not only greatest hits, it's greatest hits in a way that we can follow almost perfectly because we kind of saw this movie before.
Right. It's like if they did a greatest hits for the Beatles, but most of the songs are from Sgt. Pepper.
Right. Yup.
Only they're sang by the Buggles.
The Buggles or the Ruddles?
Or Ruddles, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Either or, it doesn't matter. Which fits because, you know, you got what's his name from Eastbound and Down and shit doing the writing, and
Danny McBride.
Danny McBride, thank you. I always forget names. And I should know his name, so I'm always telling people who he is. Nobody ever knows who he is. It's like the guy from Eastbound and Down, never seen it. You ever seen This Is the End or whatever, The End of the World with?
Yeah, This Is the End. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, that guy who has Channing Tatum on a chain. Oh, that guy?
I mean, who would have thought? And Danny McBride even said this in an interview. He's like, he never thought he would ever be a part of a horror franchise, and let alone Halloween. So he was just as amazed as everybody else with all the love that this movie got, and just being a sheer part of it. Because let's face it, when you think Danny McBride, you think Vice Principals, you think goofy Southern guy, you don't necessarily think a guy that loves horror.
Well, and I think I've seen him in one or two things that were more dramatic, and I know he's got an edge to him, and I think all the stuff in This Is the End or whatever is a lot of it's improvised anyway. So you can tell the dude's got a real dark sense of fucking humor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was on board with him, but that's the thing. I was more disappointed in that. And I wasn't trying to have my expectations like way, way, way up there. But I was just like, this movie has to do a couple things for me. And of course it had to fail on those two levels. And that was mainly convince me why they had to retcon everything up till the first film, and why this, why they made Michael Myers and Laurie Strode not related anymore. And it failed on both levels. And if you would have done what I had said just a few minutes ago, it would have fixed both of those problems. Because then you just make Mike Myers all about the babysitters. That's all he gives a shit about. He doesn't care who the babysitter is, as long as it's a babysitter. And that makes him more dangerous and back to what he originally was intended to be. Unless Lucas wants to argue with that, but I'm sure he agrees. Or Mecca or Susan or anybody else, Molly.
No,
that would be good.
I'm looking in the chat, and Patrick Olinger says, I might be in the minority, but I love the Rob Zombie Halloween movies.
I don't mind the first one, but...
Rob gets a bad rap for a lot of the stuff he does, but I have to say, at least he's thinking outside the box for a lot of his movies. He's an acquired taste like caviar. It's like, you're kind of ambivalent about it. You're like, why don't you just stay a musician? But he has this passion for horror, and at least he's trying different things. Like, I know 3 from Hell is coming out pretty soon. And, even Joe Bob Briggs, when I interviewed him, said that he considers Rob Zombie to be like an auteur of horror. That's a pretty high compliment coming from, somebody like Joe Bob. And I think he just, he gets a bad rap because of the Halloween movies. But then again, he was being kind of, I don't want to say pressured, but, into making those his own. That's the direction that he had. You need to make these your own movie. And when he did that, that's when you have all the issues that fall with it.
Right. And that's my problem. See, because the first one he did isn't bad. And he actually did something that normally I would say is a big no-no. And that is, don't tell us more about the monster.
Yeah.
Don't give us the background, because all that does is ruin it. And the best part of Halloween 2000, whatever it was, it came out 7 or whatever, is that first half.
Yeah.
Once he has to start retelling the original Halloween story, that's when it goes downhill.
Yeah.
And because we've already seen this story, and then the ending just gets so bad. I like the original ending better, because of course everybody probably knows by now, and it's been long enough. The original movie leaked online before it ever came out. And it was in a form that was closer to the unrated version, but the original ending was completely different on both, I think. And it was a little bit more grounded. The original ending was much better. And it flowed better. It wasn't nearly as... I don't know. But either way, the original version that leaked online was 10 times better than either one of the R-rated or unrated versions we got on DVD. And I like it to a point, but when we get to part 2, the only good thing about part 2 is what they did with Laurie's character. Because it's the first time I actually believed somebody went through the shit they went through in the first film.
Yeah.
Because you feel like she's a damaged teenager who's gone through some shit, and he gave us like a more realistic version of what somebody would be like, the problems they would have. They would be, not to be like cliche, but they would be kind of emo, and obviously been through like 10 different therapists, and probably have an alcohol problem or a drug problem, and all this other kind of shit, as opposed to when we usually get to see these people in the sequel, they're like nothing happened.
Or they skip over all of that part. They're like, whoa, no, they're recovered.
Or yeah, exactly.
Part of my problems with, I have a lot of them with remakes and all that crap, but it's like, I'm not really a fan of getting into the psyche of people like Michael Myers and the Friday the 13th that was, pre-production before they kind of put, the end to all that because of the ring, supposedly. They were getting more into Jason Voorhees and why Jason was the way he was. Whenever you define a character like that, the killer, what have you, whenever you define them and start getting into their psyche and why they are the way they are, you take away the fear. It's that element of, we don't know what the hell this guy's going to do. Holy crap. It's like if we start psychoanalyzing, Freddy Krueger, what we pretty much did with Jackie Earl Haley, it's like then if you start to make them sympathetic, that's when the problems start. And I think we need to move away from those origin stories and just kind of let these killers do what they do best.
Right. And normally that's the way it works. And it just happened to be good in that instance with Halloween because it felt like, oh, we're getting to see like the true story of what Michael Myers was all about and why he was the way he was and why he wants to kill his sisters. In that sense, it works great with the old mythology, but it doesn't work great with the mythology of where Michael Myers came from originally. If you want him to be a shape, if you want him to be a shadow, if you want him to be a boogeyman, then that's not what you do. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was like it worked once for that character, but after that, the only other character I could see you telling the background story, and I've said this before too, and it actually probably making the character even more vile would be Freddy Krueger. Because they've always skated around what he was before he was what he is now.
I'll tell you, in this world of PC monitoring, that's not going to fly. I mean, if they start delving into that, that's going to be a big issue right off the bat.
You're right. It would be worse than they were back then. Because see, back then they were all about, oh, you could say he was a child murderer, but let's leave out the child molester part. Yeah. And then the remake, they're like, well, we're not going to make him a child murderer. We'll just make him a child molester. That's worse anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he was both.
Yeah.
And once you took the murderer part away from him in the remake, that kind of fucked everything up. But I'm not even going to get into that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we just need to leave those origin stories be and concentrate on the horror and the element of holy crap. Where did this guy come from? What the hell? What is he doing?
Well, Jason has one of the more simpler ones where we all know it. We don't need to see it again. And that's what I've said. They can do another Jason movie without even getting into that.
Well, they were delving into his daddy issues.
Who cares?
Yeah, I know.
They tried that in Jason Goes to Hell to a point. Who cares?
Yeah, and then took the franchise with it. But
nobody cares.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Molly, how do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, I'm always gonna love Rob Zombie movies, but I do see both sides about how like he is Michael Myers is supposed to be the shape, he's supposed to be the boogeyman, and that's what people know him as. So I feel like if Rob Zombie had made virtually the same Halloween that he did, but had it not be Michael Myers, it probably would have been way more successful. Because I like the psychology behind it and the background and stuff, but it's a different movie when you do that. It doesn't work in the same sense. So if he had done that and had it just be some like psycho killer and not have it be this like mythical like homicidal maniac that we all know and love, it would have been, the reception probably would have been very different for it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I was saying. That's one of the few times it works. And it did for that one movie. Because then once you get to the sequel, outside of Laurie's character, everything else is fucking just a mess.
Yeah.
And the whole ghost horse thing.
Yeah, the white horse.
That's the music video aspect of his background coming in.
Well, in that sense, he needed to. And I know part of it is he did it on purpose. I know that. So it's like, I just kind of ignore that movie in a way. And I don't get a lot of the hate for Rob Zombie. I do think he's a very talented filmmaker. In fact, he's probably a better filmmaker than he is a musician. Because if you look at a lot of his music, whether you like it or not, you got to admit, it's pretty much corporate like death rock is all it is. It's the extension of what Kiss and Alice Cooper started, and it's not even really like, because even like guys like Gore and all them are even more independent than he ever was.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, Mecca knows what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
If you can help me explain this.
Well, you're basically saying that Rob Zombie is more mainstream, I guess, than
Right.
he appears to be.
Because even what we see on the stage, that was all an act.
Yeah.
Like with Alice Cooper and Kiss and
Yeah.
stuff. That's what I'm saying. It was all done for the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, because you have bands like Gore,
Right.
like you brought up, like they were way far, like more out there than Rob Zombie ever was on stage. Like with the spraying the audience with the fake urine and semen and blood and everything. And yeah, I think you're pretty much right about that one. About
I think why I have a fondness for Rob Zombie is because I do like his music. I do like what he does. But I see you guys, to your point, he's not Ghost. He's not like
No, what I was getting to, that adds more to him better being a storyteller and in the theatricality of it.
Yeah.
He makes a better filmmaker than he does a musician, in a sense that he could keep doing the same White Zombie, Rob Zombie shit for God knows how. We could have, him up on stage till he's 80, like Ozzy, doing the same shit. But I give him credit for going and thinking outside. Because if you think he's making more money doing movies, then you're dead wrong.
Yeah, he isn't. I mean, because that his cash cow is his music, because that's what he was known for. But his passion, and this is why I love him, his passion is horror. And when you see him talk about movies in general, not only horror, but Rob's a cinephile. He just loves the movie making process. And it's like every time I hear him talk, I'm like, damn it, I want to talk to this guy. I want to geek out with him about movies and stuff. There's such a love there. And I guess that's why I'm kind of in Rob Zombie's camp, so to speak.
Yeah, King Diamond was another good example that the chat's bringing up.
Yeah, I love King Diamond. Well, I always thought King Diamond and Merciful Fates influenced Ghost so much too. But that's totally a different. That's more in the theatric music side of things than like film, of course.
Yeah, but if you have that vision for music, you can sometimes translate it into film.
Yeah, you can.
Because I believe David Fincher started out in videos and things of that nature. And then you had him do Seven. And when he did Seven, then you had a plethora of movies after Seven with the opening credits exactly like Seven.
I was just going to say, David Fincher is like if the entire band of Nine Inch Nails decided to be a director.
Yeah. Exactly. And the funny part is Mark Romanek did a lot of their videos, like the Closer video.
Well, I was gonna say and Fincher even uses a lot of their music and shit, I think.
Yeah. Or as David Lynch calls them, the 9-inch nails.
And didn't Fincher, wasn't like his first big directorial movie, wasn't that Alien 3?
Yes, it was.
And that was, for what they did in that, he did kind of get back to the original and it being more theatrical, even though it was kind of a mess.
His version. They have a quote unquote extended cut, or
that is more David Fincher and less chopped up.
To be, yes, but it's still not his preferred cut, as far as I know. They didn't let him. He refuses to get involved with it, I guess, is the whole deal. But
Yeah.
they have left the door open for him to come in and do his version if he wants. But yes, that version is supposed to be closer to his version, and yes, it is superior. I agree.
I'm looking at the chat again, and OG Spock Love is talking about the Cenobites, and I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about if they were to revive Hellraiser. God, I don't even want to put this out in the universe, but if they would, I would love to see Rob Zombie take on Hellraiser.
See, yeah, he'd be a better fit for that. I'm glad you brought that. Molly, you were saying something there? Sorry.
Oh no, I was just agreeing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear what you said, so. But no, yeah, I totally agree with that. And Mr. H, I doubt he's listening. Mr. H Reviews, he's doing videos right now where I guess he got his hands on Clive Barker's what was going to be his remake that never happened. So I haven't seen all the videos yet, but he's been doing a series of videos on that script. So if you're interested in what it would have been, check it out. So, but yeah, Rob Zombie would be a great fit for Hellraiser.
Yeah. Because that's right up his alley. I mean, like I said, I'm not putting that out there in the universe, but I mean, they should go to him first if they even like pitch a Hellraiser movie, which I honestly don't think that's going to happen ever, but I may be wrong.
I've heard there's probably going to be something happening, but I don't know how much, if it's going to be a remake or what
they're going to do, or if it's something new in that universe from Clive. Because I haven't heard too much from him lately.
Yeah, I know that his original idea for a remake is not happening, but I know Andre's always trying to find out because the rights, I think last time we knew they're sitting at Lionsgate and Miramax. But I know we got to be getting close to that 35-year thing to where Clive, if he wanted to, could probably go back and get them. So I have no idea.
Like every movie is coming back to that whole rights issue. Like when we were talking about Ghostbusters last week, and it's like, it seems like that's coming up with a lot of classic movies, and probably like we discussed, that's why we're getting all this craziness of these movies coming out of nowhere and television shows because rights are reverting and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think didn't that start like a few years back with there was like a bunch of Disney properties?
Well, part of it, there's the Mickey Mouse law, which I don't know if that has anything to do with the law I'm talking about, but they put that in order to where they could extend the copyright law by like 25 years, I think it is. And they argued because Mickey is actually like the symbol of their company, so they don't want it to fall into public domain because Mickey was going to be falling into public domain here soon. And the other thing is with the 35-year thing, though, is if a creator on a project, if their rights are out there, but if they were the sole creator or creators, they after 35 years, they have the right to go back and reclaim their rights on the original story so that they can. And I think this has more to do with Schuster, who was it? Joel Schuster and oh man, can't believe I just blanked on the name. Siegel, is it? Siegel and Schuster, who made Superman. I always do this with names. I'm horrible.
Oh, no, Lauren Schuler Donner and Richard Donner.
Well, no, the original creators of Superman. The reason this law exists is because they didn't make shit off of Superman. And there's other people who got involved where original creators can go back and reclaim their rights after 35 years so that they have a right to be able to profit on their creation. Like I brought up, like, for instance, if Wes Craven was still alive, he'd have been able to do that for Nightmare on Elm Street since he was the original creator. The whole Victor Miller thing came into question because technically some elements weren't created by Victor Miller. And then the elements that weren't created by Victor Miller afterwards aren't owned by him. So that's where all these rights are all over the place. And Siegel and Joe, yeah, okay, thank you so much, Captain. Jerry Siegel and Joe Schuster, thank you. I'm horrible with names, guys, if you haven't figured that shit out yet. So yeah, that's, I think, where that kind of started from, and that came into effect like in the late 70s. So that's why we're seeing a lot of that now too, is because it didn't even exist until about the same time. Now all these things are starting to come around to their 35-year. James Cameron's getting the Terminator rights back. That's how that's all happening there. He has already done that. I mean, basically the whole Victor Miller thing wasn't so much about him getting the rights back. It was Sean S. Cunningham fighting him is what it was. He pretty much had the rights coming to him because it was on Cunningham to prove that he didn't create all that shit, basically, is what the whole case was about. So in the end, what happens is everything that's in the first movie, he owns. But what he doesn't own is Hockey Mask Jason. I doubt he owns Friday the 13th, the name, because that is something Sean S. Cunningham came up with. And I'm sure there's other few specifics, but basically what that means is Mama Voorhees is probably off the table now. Any any version of Jason that's a child is off the table unless it's different. Like if you give him a different origin story, then you're fine, I guess. But you don't need to. That's the best part with Jason. So, but that aside, that's where all this shit's coming back from now that I've blabbed on for like 5 minutes here. Sorry.
Well, I think, does anybody else have anything to say about the topic or, anything about
I have nothing left. Anybody else? Where did we start here? It was Halloween, wasn't it?
Yeah. But that's like how these discussions go.
And I think that's another reason why John Carpenter's probably involved with the whole Halloween thing too. And I know there was a rights issue recently that was kept under hush hush. Like when we tried digging up shit for it for our documentary, we couldn't get much about it. So I have a feeling that might be part of it.
Yeah. Well, this past week was pretty bad with people passing away and such. And I wanted to...
Oh, yes, I totally blew this.
Yeah, no. I wanted to talk a little bit about William Goldman.
Yes, we need to talk about William Goldman.
For those of you that know William Goldman and his work, you automatically think The Princess Bride, which is a great movie and is one of the best adaptations of fairy tale that you can come across, which understands all the tropes, makes fun of them, and it's marvelous. And I can't say enough good about it. Yeah, great
all
cast.
The President's Men.
Yep. But what people don't remember is that he has such a copious body of work that not only did he do something like The Princess Bride, but he's also done horror.
Lots of it.
Yeah, lots of it. And one of the films that he did, that he had a hand in, I read the book, is Magic. And I saw the movie. And Magic will be turning 40, I think. No, it is 40. Magic is 40. And
78, yep.
Yeah, 78. It's 40. And I wrote a piece about it for 1428 because I felt it gets overlooked. Because he was, before Chucky, before Annabelle, you had Fats.
Yeah.
And you had that, there was an old Twilight Zone episode about a dummy that comes to life. And that's kind of like in the world of clowns, not liking clowns, dummies freak a lot of people out. Because sometimes the people that are operating them, you wonder, is the line blurred? And that book and that screenplay explored that to the fullest effect. And you had Anthony Hopkins, who was excellent as Corky. I mean, he was sweating bullets and he was manic. And you could see this man literally falling apart on screen, like, the id and the super ego and all that Freudian mess. And then you've got at the basic heart of it, it's also kind of like a love story, a melancholy story, because Corky really wants to be with the girl that he loved years ago, which is played by Anne Margaret. And then you have the backdrop of everything going crazy with, Fats. And it's such a well done screenplay and directed by Sir Richard Attenborough. And you would never think Sir Richard Attenborough of Jurassic Park, Welcome to Jurassic Park, would ever direct a horror movie. But he did, and he has some experience with it because he himself was in a very Hitchcockian, very crazy movie. I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's the name of a street. It's like 10 something street. And if ever that plays, you should see it because he plays a serial killer. Now, you would never think that, but he took that experience, parlayed it into magic. And if you like Chucky, and if you like Annabelle, I urge you to see this movie because you can see where those dolls are coming from. Now, it was after the Zuni doll, but this is more of the talking and the reasoning that you get more so with Chucky. So if you've never seen Magic, I highly recommend it. Right. Have you guys seen it?
Years ago.
I have not.
Yeah, years ago, and it's Anthony Hopkins that is most creepy.
Yeah.
before he was
Hannibal.
Hannibal. Mecca, did you say if you saw it or not?
No, I haven't seen that one actually.
Well, I'm going to go down the list here of all his, not just his horror movies, but all his movies. And then when I'm done, the rest of you can tell us what your favorite horror movie of his is. Since obviously Magic is Susan's. But these are also movies that he wrote screenplays for. Just to name a few, obviously, like I said before, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Stepford Wives, All the President's Men, like I said before, Marathon Man from his own novel, A Bridge Too Far, Magic, Butch and Sundance, the early years.
Oh, wow. William Catton, Tom Berenger.
Princess Bride, of course. Bookend screenplay, Misery's screenplay, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, that I believe was directed by John Carpenter.
John Carpenter, yep.
Year of the Comet, Chaplin, Maverick, Ghost in the Darkness, Fierce Creatures, which was kind of like the spiritual sequel to Fish Called Wanda, actually.
Yep.
Absolute Power, I think that was the one with
Clint Eastwood.
Yep.
And Ed Harris.
And Ed Harris, yeah. General's Daughter, that one was with John Travolta. Hearts in Atlantis, another one with Anthony Hopkins. Dreamcatcher, another Stephen King one.
And that movie gets a lot of shit, no pun intended.
Right. But it is, well, I like it, but it's got a lot of it and Stand By Me in it.
Yeah.
But it is good. So yeah, of all those, though, quite a few horror films in there, like Stepford Wives, Misery, which is going to be my pick. I love Misery. It's got to be up there in the top 5, if not 3 adaptations of all time of Stephen King's.
Oh, yeah.
Very close to the book, which I've read. Love the cast. Of course, you got Kathy Bates's Annie is just pure gold. Seriously.
Mr. Man.
Yeah. He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodie car. I love that movie. Love that movie. And there's an excellent couple Blu-rays out there, whether you get the MGM one or the Shout one, which is a little bit more expensive, but I think that has some extra goodies and a new transfer.
Directed by an unlikely source.
Oh, of course, yeah. Mr. Spinal Tap himself,
Rob
Reiner. So yeah, that's my pick. Mecca, what's your pick on the list of the ones I just mentioned?
I gotta say Princess Bride, probably.
Well, besides that, the horror ones.
But if the horror ones, probably Misery. Yeah. Probably Misery.
Any reason why? Or
that one just it kind of stands out more, I think, than the others, because I saw that when I was so little as a kid, and it still really kind of sticks with you as being, if it didn't have some of the gory, well, not even gory, but some of the kind of the terrifying horror elements, it would be a very, like, it could be like a TV movie of the week, but it'd be a really good one. Or it could be like, it's more of a general audience sort of movie. Like, people who aren't necessarily horror fans can still kind of get into it, I think. And I really enjoyed it too. But
if it wasn't such a huge bestseller, it probably would have been a movie of the week.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that one was just, it just happened to be such a good book that they're like, well, you can't just throw this, you had Rob Reiner, you had, the cast, and of course, William Goldman writing. So the screenplay. So, and he did a great job adapting it. So you can't lose there. Molly, which one's your choice?
I mean, if I'm looking at ones that are like definitely considered horror, I'd probably go with Misery.
I did miss Year of the Comet too, by the way. That's kind of a sci-fi, but sorry.
Oh, sorry. I have a very special place in my heart for Ghost in the Darkness.
Yes.
I love that movie. And my grandparents, when I was little, whenever I would go to their house, that was one of like 5 movies that they owned that I would always pick to watch. So I'm obsessed with that movie. But I don't know if it's probably not horror, even though it's like killer lions.
Doesn't it have some horrific stuff in it though?
Yeah, I mean,
with the lions, and that's not the Year of the Comet I was thinking of either. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, and I mean, I like that one's based on a true story too, like about the killer man-eating lions that had like a cave with hundreds of human bodies in it and stuff.
And that was directed by Stephen Hopkins, who did Nightmare on Elm Street 5.
Yes. So it's, yeah, I mean, I that one and Misery are probably my two horror adjacent choices.
Lucas.
Yeah, yep. And for me, it's Misery 2. And my favorite part of that,
there was a part 2?
No. It was Misery.
Annie's Revenge?
Yeah, she breaks his legs more.
Awesome.
But yeah, like, and that was the part of the movie that got me, because sometimes horror movies struggle with how are we going to keep the story going, or what crazy thing is going to happen. And in this case, she just decides to re-break his legs, and that was a horrific scene. And that was the thing that really got my attention, and that I didn't stop thinking about for a long time after I watched that movie.
Since you brought it up now, and almost every one of us picked that one, or at least a majority, I think. Anyway, yeah, the majority. Do you guys think it would have been more horrific if they would have stuck with the book, or if it wasn't worse the way they did it in the movie? Because in the book, she chops one of his feet off.
Yeah.
Literally.
Well, the book was ultra graphic. I mean, what he was forced to drink because he didn't have any liquid.
Right. Well, that kind of stuff. I just wonder, like, because I know he brought that specific scene up, and I know that's one of the more famous ones because in the book, she actually lops his foot off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would have been. I liked it the way that they did it, because it was almost like more psychological, and the sound effect of it was horrific. And just the way that it was shot, like, oh, we're gonna look up at it, and
like
then you're gonna look down at him, and
it's like, freaky either way.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something almost more psychotic about her doing it that way. Whereas I mean, I feel like if she was cutting a foot off, she would have to be more methodical about it and calculated, even though like it would be more graphic. I feel like just the insanity and the force you would have to use to just like break those legs. Well,
and it makes more sense this way and goes along more with her character, because she wouldn't want to make a mess.
That's true.
See, and that's one thing I always thought about it, and I justified it in my head after reading the book. I'm like, well, it makes more sense, because otherwise, like you said, she would have had to set all this stuff up, and yeah, he would have already known what the hell was going to happen before it happened. All the suspense is gone. Why are you putting a bunch of plastic on the bed? It's like...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is one of...
Did I cut out there? Did everybody
Rob Reiner really did a good job with Misery. I think it was just one of those things where all the stars aligned. You had a perfect script. And that was one of James Caan's... That was when he started his resurrection. It started with Gardens of Stone, and then it continued on with Misery. And that only helped him, his career. It gave us an excellent performance from Kathy Bates, who prior to that, was doing things like Fried Green Tomatoes, doing a lot of Broadway. Kind of maybe, helped her on the road to American Horror Story.
Well, and she's perfect as Dolores Claiborne.
Oh, yeah. Dolores Claiborne is another fine...
And I think Stephen King actually wrote that for her specifically, if I'm not mistaken.
He did. Yes, he did. Yep. Yeah, she's
a
great actress.
I love her. She's amazing.
Yeah, I think Misery is one of Goldman's best. And for those of us that write, you want a career like William Goldman. You want to be able to be a genre jumper. You don't want to get pigeonholed into just one thing, or having people think you can do one thing. Because he was certainly all over the place with just that list of credits that you read.
And I was skipping all over him, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he came from the world of novels. And it just shows you that, there's versatility to be had. And you would have never thought that the man that did Princess Bride would have given you Misery. But it's just like another compartment in your head. So his career is absolutely amazing. And I think next to... Richard Matheson, he's one of my personal idols. And anybody that's out there in the chat, because I know we've had budding filmmakers, people that want to write screenplays, pick up his book, Adventures in the Screen Trade. That is like a Bible. It tells you all about how crazy Hollywood is. And one of his quotes still stands the test of time about Hollywood. Nobody knows anything. And it's true. He said that like almost.
Wasn't it Nobody Knows Nothing?
Yeah, no, I think it was Nobody Knows Anything, but
Okay.
you can look it up. But he said that on Charlie Rose like 2 decades ago. And it's still in play. And you would think it would get better, but it doesn't. But yeah, pick up that book. It is well worth it if you're interested in making movies or you want to do something in the industry. It's like a Bible.
Well, like you said, he's a very good example of somebody, especially if you want to be a writer. And The Princess Bride is almost kind of a great example of his whole career. That movie does a 180 on you and kind of tricks you into the story. And that's kind of like his career. You know, one movie, oh, he did that. Oh, he did that and that and that and that and that. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, he's a guy to really check out if you want to be a screenwriter. But we do have a good question, a lot of Phantasm talk in the chat here. That's a good way to start out the questions. We got a little bit of time, I think, as long as everybody's cool with time, to go to about 7 o'clock. Or, well, another 10, 20 minutes. Take some questions real quick. Patrick Ollinger brought up a remake of Phantasm. Don I can never say his name. Coscarelli. Hasn't he brought up something about doing something in that realm, Susan?
He's thinking about a Phantasm TV series. He's doing a lot of thinking on a lot of his movies lately. Since he did the tour for True Indie, his book, he was coming out in the news with a lot of the things that he's done in the past, and I guess trying to maybe envision them in the future. If he does reboot Phantasm, he would definitely be involved with it. I don't see him handing that off to anyone.
Right.
Because I know he's held the Bubba Hotep rights forever.
Well, we just got a beautiful box set, whether you're from outside the U.S. or in the U.S. I actually have both box sets of Phantasm. And I wouldn't be surprised if that sold well, that it wouldn't get some kind of attention. So you're probably right. And a series might not be a bad idea, as long as they get the right cast. You know, you got to find the right person to play the tall man. And
yeah, it's hard to get somebody to recreate Angus Scrimm. You know, I'm sure they exist out there. Somebody I know mentioned David Warner.
Is he even still alive?
Yeah, David is very much alive and working. Yes.
Okay, good. Well, he might be an all right choice. I don't know. I think you go a little younger, but Mecca, were you ever a fan of the Phantasm movies? I can't remember if you said you seen them.
It's been so long since I've seen them, probably like 1988 or something. I was really young last time I saw them, so I did like them when I saw them. I need to go back and rewatch them though.
Yeah, so at that point you might have had the first two, maybe.
Yeah, it's probably just two of them.
90s.
And they did, like, the most recent one that came out did kind of wrap up, and it did kind of wrap up the story.
Yeah. So you've seen them all, Luke. What do you think about this? And then we'll ask Molly.
If they bring it back, as long as Don Coscarelli is involved, I do like the idea of it being a TV series and maybe something tangential to the original story. Yeah, I don't want them retelling this, because no, this is one thing that even I don't want remade. I love the original movie. When they just re-released it in theaters and in the 4K version, I went to go see it. It looks awesome. The story, the original soundtrack, yeah, is it a little bit wonky in some areas? Sure. Does the logic make sense? Not really, but it was a great horror film because it told a great story and it was kind of horrifying, which is what you want. And I don't, how they spun that up into 4 other movies and told such a nice story that they did tie up. I don't want them to start it all over again. If they did something like maybe, I don't know, more about the tall man, or just somebody else gets involved or some other part of it, that would be fine. But I would be very interested to see where they would go with the series before I would say whether or not I was interested in seeing it.
All right, Molly.
Yeah, I have only seen the first one, and I actually only saw it for the first time like maybe 2 years ago. So I'm newer to the Phantasm franchise, but I think the biggest thing I think is if they did it, a TV series would make more sense to me at least than doing like a full reboot of the original movie or anything like that. But I think the biggest thing would just be who they would cast as the Tall Man. Because he has such an iconic look. I think that would be hard for them to find someone that would be able to live up to that.
And that's the logistic issue, because of course, sadly, Angus Scrimm isn't with us anymore. I'm sure he would be on board.
Yeah.
We had another question up here from Stephanie Littlepage. She asks, didn't the guy who wrote the novel Psycho also write a Star Trek episode or something? Yes, Robert Bloch did write 3 Star Trek episodes. What are the little girls made of? Cat's paw and wolf in the fold. That's your answer. There you go. I guess that's a little horror related since he wrote Psycho. Let me see. I'm looking for another question here.
Willie Woodward asks, what do you think is the best monster movie? What do you think makes a good monster movie?
Well, what do you mean by monster movie? And if, as far as like, if you mean just monsters, they have to be like a literal monster, not humanoid really in any way. Gremlins, I guess. Otherwise, if you're talking like humanoid monsters that can count like guys like Frankenstein's monster and Dracula and Freddy and Jason, then Freddy. So that's my answer. Susan?
For monster movies, that's interesting because I have to think about that. Oddly enough, I'm really not a monster person, but if we're going with the old classic Universal, I'm going to go with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because I'm always going to go for that psychologically tinged horror. And that has a monster in it. And it also deals with a man wrestling with his psyche and his baser impulses. So I'm going to go with that one.
All right. And I got to throw a shout out to King Kong too, by the way.
Oh, yeah, Kong. Yeah.
Mecca? Mecca, did we lose
Yeah,
you?
sorry. Well, King Kong's great though. What, like,
right. Well, I'm not sure what he means by monster. Does it have to actually be like a big hulking monster, or can it? Or do you mean like a movie monster? Which, to me, it considered all of them the movie monsters.
Yeah.
So you can give 2 answers, like I did, or 3 actually.
I love so many like they're all so unique in their own way. Like for me, like when I hear just monster though, I go to like kaiju, I go to like Godzilla and stuff. So when I hear just monster, because like yeah, so like to specify it would be like Universal monsters or like modern slasher monster, you know. So yeah, I mean that's kind of where my brain goes, just the kaiju.
Go Godzilla.
I know.
Molly?
I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat where if we got more specific, or even if you asked me again in 20 minutes, I would probably change my answer. But the first thing that came to mind was Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I'm going to encompass the creature from, Shape of Water in that, because obviously the inspiration was Creature from the Black Lagoon. But I personally love monster movies where they make humans look like the bad guys, because I don't like people. So it's a logical progression in my mind that the monsters would be, because even in the original, like even though he's destroying stuff, he's just lonely. He just wants a lady friend. He's not really a bad guy. And then they're trying to shoot him and stuff. So I mean,
shit up though, yeah.
I will always love Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I love Shape of Water too. But I love the look of that creature too.
I just remember that one video. Sorry, of Cinemassacre when he reviewed when the Angry Video Game Nerd reviewed the creature, and he's like, "I'm gonna fuck this up and fuck this and fuck."
Oh, I love that video.
That's whatever I think of anymore with the creature from the Black. I love that, and props to, what wasn't it, Stan Winston who did all the effects in Monster Squad? The creature looks amazing in that movie.
Yeah, they made him scary in that.
Yeah, I love that version.
Oh, and that movie's amazing too.
Of course it is. Well, we should do a Monster Squad show one of these days. We could probably get somebody from the Monster Squad on here if we try hard enough.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That would be pretty cool. Luke, what's your choice?
I like all of any monster that shows up in the Peter Cushing kind of the horror movies from the 50s and 60s. I love the one
horror ones.
Yeah, but I especially love, and I don't remember who directed it. I don't even know the name of the monster, but the name of the movie is Horror Express. And it's just kind of this wolf monster that stares at you, and you start hearing like sonic noises and you go crazy. And I always loved to watch that. They would play that all the time when I was a kid, and that was like my favorite movie monster. And I don't think they ever named him. Also, like, if you want to see that movie, it's public domain now. So if you look it up on Wikipedia, instead of a picture there, you can actually play the whole movie from Wikipedia.
Oh, sweet. Well, a deep cut, but you actually got one that people can watch. There you go. And Susan, did you got your pick, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say you weren't sure at first, but yeah, you've picked one. All right. So let's see. Did anybody else find another question there while we were waiting? Or let's see here. I'm so shitty at finding questions, guys. I apologize. I'm a horrible MC.
Zach Frederick says, I heard the woman who said she wrote Matrix and Terminator won a lawsuit recently. I don't know if it's true. Does anybody know anything about that? About a woman writing both screenplays?
No, that's the first. I'm trying to remember who wrote. Would that be Gail Ann Hurd? No. Who else wrote with Cameron on Terminator?
That's a very good question.
Yeah, somebody has to tell me the answer to that question, then I could probably tell you. I don't
remember.
The
writers were James Cameron and Gail Ann Hurd.
Oh, I was right.
And it was additional dialogue was done by William Wisher. Now, going to the Matrix.
Did she write on that too?
Wrote that. The writers, Lily Wachowski as the Wachowski brothers and Lana Wachowski.
Yeah, I'm going to say I thought they were the only writers on that.
Yeah. I've never heard that rumor before.
Unless it's a completely different person who wrote books or something that are similar to those, and she's suing because they're similar.
Yeah, Zach says he heard it was a book she wrote about that got stolen.
Oh, I have no idea then. That's the first I've heard about it. That's cool that I was right on Laura Schuler. Gold star for Tom. Let's see here. Byron Dunbar, how would you feel about Seth Green voicing Cerebus the Aardvark in a Cerebus TV show as reported by Wikipedia vandalism? I'm not sure. That's not really. Is that really horror related though?
Cerberus the Aardvark.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Byron. I have to plead ignorance about Cerberus the Aardvark. But if it's something that's animated and it's in Seth Green's world, he's a hell of a voiceover guy. So let's go with yes on that.
Harlan Ellison is the person that's brought up by Captain April as being involved in the plagiarism case, so I have no idea. That's something I'd have to look into.
I can imagine Harlan probably would have sued because he was I love his work, but he fought for writers, and I will give him that. But I can see him actually suing James Cameron. I'd probably
that sounds familiar. But yeah, I don't know enough about it to talk about it. So yeah, unfortunately, sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Susan.
No.
Trying to find a question for us.
Nilness asks, any thoughts on Suspiria 2018?
Oh, that's one that Mecca. Did you get a chance to see that yet?
I didn't. I was going to before I came out to Colorado, but no, I haven't gotten to.
And it got taken out of theaters by me before I had the chance to see it.
Yeah.
Molly?
No, I unfortunately live in the middle of nowhere, and the nearest theater is like 2 hours away, so I haven't had a chance to see it yet.
Susan?
I'm going to say something that's not really popular, but I'm going to say it anyway because that's how I roll. I am not a fan of Italian horror. I've seen Argento's films, and I acknowledge his greatness and his vision. But for me personally, that's not going to be one that's going to drive me to the movie theater.
You're right. Well, and I haven't seen the original in so long.
I have, yeah.
And if I see this new one, I'll have to watch the original again just before it, at least, because that's just the way I roll. And then I can give you an honest opinion. But at this point, I'm kind of with Susan. It was never one that's really been big on my list. So I don't know if I'd say I'm not a fan of Italian horror, though. I wouldn't know if I go that far, but that's
Sorry,
just
Byron.
never. Yeah, that's just not one that's ever really.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Byron. I just speak my mind, but we all have different preferences, and that's not
Mecca,
mine.
you've seen the original quite a bit.
Oh yeah. I'm a huge fan of Italian horror, so it's okay. It's okay. We have some different tastes on the show, but that's what makes it interesting too. So.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts on the upcoming Night of the Living Dead sequel? Didn't know there was one. Is it official? Or is it just another one? Because you know how many times the Night of the Living Dead has been remade because it was public domain? At least like 3 or 4 times now.
Mm-hmm.
At what part do we stop with that? We've had enough of those.
I have a Night of the Living Dead musical half written somewhere. That would be fun, but nobody wants to see that, I don't think.
Why? Evil Dead kicks ass. Why wouldn't you give it a shot?
They did a musical in Evil Dead.
Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. What?
I said Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, it's successful. It's very successful. It was off Broadway. It's touring. George Reinblatt wrote the original. It kind of now blends all of the Evil Dead into it. I mean, they have songs like "What the Fuck Is Happening," and yeah, it's a good time.
Oh man, that means that's one of my songs are gone. Similar to that, no, but yeah, I had like 4 or 5 songs written. I had it written up to a point, but I don't know.
Stephanie Littlepages asks, have you ever seen any Aussie horror? It's some weird stuff. Yes. I love Wolf Creek. Love that. Yeah, John Jarrett. Wow. I don't want to be in the outback with him. And then there was another Aussie horror. Well, it was a pseudo horror, more of a psychological one that I saw and reviewed for 1428. And if one of you guys want to take it, I need to look it up as to what it is. But yes, Aussie horror, I actually like. How about you guys?
I don't know that I've actually seen any.
I was just gonna say if I've seen one, I probably wasn't sure unless everybody spoke with an Australian accent.
I think I know more New Zealand horror because Peter Jackson, but
yeah, I was gonna say, well, yeah, if you count that, but I don't know if that'd be kind of like that's not exactly the same thing, is it?
No, they're different countries.
Well, obviously, but
yeah.
There are a few. I mean, obviously, Wolf Creek is awesome. The Loved Ones is one that I love. No pun intended. Which I don't know if anyone has seen that. It's a jilted girl that decides to kidnap the guy that she asked out to prom or whatever that said no. And then her and her father proceed to torture him for a really long time, which is always a good time. And then is Razorback technically a Australian film? Do you know? Isn't that what it's called? The one with the giant boar?
I love it, but yeah, I'm not sure on that.
I mean, I know it takes place in Australia, but I don't know if it was like an American film or not.
With which one? The one with Gregory Harrison from '84?
Yes.
Okay, let's look. Russell Mulcahy directed it, And Russell was a video guru that made Duran Duran famous. He is from Melbourne, so yes, it is an Aussie property.
Awesome. Okay, then I have 3 there that I like. There might be more that I'm not thinking of, but those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
I'm trying to look up that movie that I saw. I know it has love in the title, and it was released in 2016, and it tells a really harrowing story of a couple that goes trolling for victims, and it's a true story, and they pick up this girl, and they literally hide her in their house for months. And it's very harrowing. It's very psychological, and if you get the chance to see it, I highly recommend it.
Is that Hounds of Love?
What?
Is that Hounds of Love?
Yes, thank you. Hounds of Love, yes.
I think that's on Shudder right now.
Yep, thanks, Molly.
You're welcome.
Great movie.
Adam Wolford has a good question, and while I'm answering this one, and well, we can get into this one a little bit. Somebody can find another question, so we have one to go up real quick, and then we can probably finish up, or we can make this the last one. Have you guys heard of the Howling remake? Yes. It is. I have not seen it. It came out last year. It was technically, from what I know of it, I'm going to screen share here. It was meant to be a sequel, I think, originally. And they wound up trying to make it out to be a remake, basically. But I have not seen it. I've heard it's really bad. That's all I know.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, I heard something about it. It's getting a 3.2 with only 98 rating. I can't remember if it's on some streaming service. Yeah, it's on Prime Video. I can watch it. Okay.
And it's a cast that nobody knows. And that's usually a harbinger of oops.
Yeah, from what I remember about it, though, it was originally meant to be a sequel and not a prequel, or meant to be a sequel, not a remake. But since it's on Amazon Prime, maybe I'll give it a shot. Storyline there, if you guys want to read it, it's up to you. So yeah, other than that, unless there was any other good questions anybody saw in the chat, I think we could probably.
Tyler Bioshock Rodriguez.
Hey, Tyler.
Is there another great horror book you would love Netflix to adapt in the vein of Haunting of Hill House? Yes. I'll go first with that one, Tyler. Yes, there is a Stephen King book called Doomakey. I love Doomakey to death. It's got all the great Stephen King elements. It's got the supernatural. It has the relationship factor that he always marries well with the horror. And if they were to do like 10 episodes of that on Netflix, I think that would be a great idea. So I'm going to vote for Doomakey. I don't know why Steven hasn't looked into adapting it or anybody's looked at it, but I hope in the future that's one of his movies that I'd love to see.
All right. Yeah, Stephen King's got tons of stuff that would make great series. Mecca, what about you?
As far as just Stephen King goes, or just any author?
Any author.
Well, Daniel Rollins. Well, she actually goes by Daniel Rollins or Daniel Vega. Probably the stuff she's written under Daniel Vega would absolutely be a great TV series. The Merciless series. It's kind of like Mean Girls meets The Exorcist. I absolutely adore her books, and I've been putting off and procrastinating reading the 4th entry in the Merciless series. They are technically YA, but they're absolutely... I can kind of forgive the sort of YA stuff because they have a great sort of setup of, okay, who do you root for? Who's the bad guy in this? Do we root for, the girl, or do we root for the people, like this other group of people? Do we root for this or that? And I really absolutely love it without really giving away anything, but I would choose that series.
All right. Molly?
There are 2 that I think would make great series. One is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski, I think.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Poe's brother, Poe the musician. Molly?
Oh, sorry. I think it cut out on my end. What was that?
I was going to say, yeah.
Mark Danielewski, that's Poe's brother. If you're familiar with Poe, the musician from the 90s, she did a whole album called Haunted that was about her brother's book. That book is amazing.
It is. And I feel like it has some similar themes that were kind of like in House on Haunted Hill, where it's like the kind of back and forth between the past and the present, and the house that has weird things about it. But I like that it's not necessarily a ghost story in House
The
of
hallway
Leaves.
goes on forever.
Yes. So that I think would be a great TV show. And then my other one, this was actually, they did 2 movies for this, but the movies are not very great. But the Night Watch series by Sergei Lukyanko. They did it's a Russian series, and the author, I think there's like 6 or 7 books now, and they did 2 movies. We could pretend the movies didn't happen and do a TV series, and I think it would be awesome because it's almost like a detective show it would end up being, but like with magicians and shapeshifters, but not in the cheesy way of like True Blood. But yeah, those are the first 2 that come to mind, I think, because I love Stephen King, but it would be nice to see some non-Stephen King stuff too.
I just gave an easy answer.
Well, I mean, Jim McKee, I guess because I love that. I mean, I have the House of Leaves, and I think it's amazing. And when I read it, I was like, Jesus, somebody needs to take this. And I was almost envisioning David Lynch in a way. But then his sister Poe came out with a beautiful album called Haunted. And if you guys remember her song, it got some airplay called Hey Pretty. If you get a chance, YouTube it. She's really good, and it's a companion to that book.
Yeah, the only Poe songs I remember are like Angry Johnny and got from her first, like, this has to be 1994 or so. But I don't think I remember anything past that first album of hers.
But at least you remember her.
Yeah. Oh, that was my thing in the 90s, like the alternative stations. I was just glued to the radio, so.
A lot of moody, good stuff back then. A lot of like Portishead and a lot of stuff that I wish these guys would come back and do some shit. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while we get some really good, amazing musician, but people probably don't want to hear just music talk on the horror podcast, right? I just have to stop myself. We get like that on the main show too sometimes.
Oh, Luke, what was your answer?
There's a book that came out in 2013 called Night Film by Marisha Pessel, and it was about this very reclusive horror film director called Stanislaw Cordova, and it's fiction, but he made these really horrific and kind of legendary horror movies that you could only see like at certain spots in the city, and like you had to have a password. They were not like big releases. And his daughter in the book ends up committing suicide, and there is a big investigation on whether or not the dad had anything to do with it or whether or not it had like supernatural elements. And it was really creepy when I read it, and it is a bit long. It's like it's over 600 pages, but when I was reading it, it was like this could easily go on TV.
All right. Sorry, I meant to hit mute there. Hopefully I wasn't making a bunch of noise. Is that the end of your answer?
Yep.
Okay. Zach Frederick, has anyone heard any news on Toxic Avenger remake that was supposed to be directed by Todd Pink? Okay, I just did some research on this while you guys were talking. I think you might be a little mistaken because I don't know who Todd Pink is. I tried to find a Todd Pink. I can't find a Todd Pink anywhere. What I think you might be referring to is a Collider story from back in 2010 where director Steve Pink from Hot Tub Time Machine had signed on to do a remake, but that's very old news. The latest news is from clear back in May, and what I got here is Conrad Vernon of Sausage Party is on board to remake it. So it is happening still, but that's the latest news that I could find on that. Unless anybody else has anything to add to Toxie news, there you go.
And I would think that, Lloyd Kaufman would want to stay really close to that.
Oh yeah. Random, you have anything to say about that?
No. I think you've probably covered pretty much same opinion there. I think. Well, I also really haven't heard that much about it anyway. So yeah, I think that Lloyd Kaufman would be right on top of it because that's his baby, you know.
There you go. So actually, that's new news, Zach. That's from May of this year. So that's not. I knew we talked about it earlier this year. Susan, do you have anything to add, Luke or Molly?
No, not in that subject. I do notice that Tyler had another question. A lot of people talk about Rod Serling's Twilight Zone, of course, because Jordan Peele is going to be on CBS All Access next year with his version of it. He asked about Night Gallery, and I have to say, I love Twilight Zone, but I also dig Night Gallery too. That was a hell of a show. They had some great episodes in there. Like one of them that I vividly remember was this couple that went to this Cape Cod-esque type New England town, and it was really creepy. And there was a legend about a captain that died, and there was a spear in a stone, and he came out at night and killed people. Yeah, I really liked that. That was a great show. Anybody else like it?
Yeah, I actually really loved Night Gallery. Probably as much as the Twilight Zone. There was a lot of good ones I remember in Night Gallery. Like there was one with Elsa Lanchester. Only I guess they ended up like planting her in the backyard, and then she kind of grew as a plant lady or something.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, there was so many. I remember they had like David McCallum in one. I think it had something to do with a painting, like in a blonde woman or something that he painted a picture of. It's been so long since I've seen that one, but there's a lot of good ones.
Well, there was that Night Gallery where Roddy McDowall was a jerk, and he killed his uncle for money. And they had a painting on the wall of the outside cemetery where his family was buried, and they buried the uncle in there. And he could see every day his uncle was coming out of the grave to come and kill him. That stayed with me. I love that one too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many good ones. I remember I had the DVD set, and then it took them forever to put out season 2. So I ended up selling season 1 probably about 2 months before season 2 came out, which usually is the case when it takes them like years and years and years. And now I think they finally have the complete series, so I'm gonna have to pick that up at some point. But they used to air them on Chiller for a while too, I remember.
What about you guys? What about you, Molly? Did you like Night Gallery?
That's one of those shows that if I have seen it, it probably was so long ago that I have blended it in my mind with a bunch of other shows.
Yeah.
So off the top of my head, I don't think I've seen it, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, and the only time I really remember seeing it is there was a while MeTV was replaying it in the middle of the night after old episodes of Columbo, and I would try to catch up on it, but I don't remember a lot about the episodes.
It's been a while since I watched it, but one thing I have to say about Night Gallery is it had a shit ton of directors that went on to be huge, because didn't even like Spielberg direct an episode or two or something like that?
Yeah. He did the original movie that had a trilogy, and it was Joan Crawford was in it, and she played a blind woman who got her sight back.
That's right. Yep. So yeah, it's just one of those things that was a launching pad for so many people in the industry, and yeah, it definitely deserves respect for that, if not anything else.
Yeah. I wish they would air it more, though. I think a lot of people might have missed it.
Probably it costs a lot.
Probably because you had to all the individual like
right.
script
and like
writers.
I said, some of the big people who are involved with it now, they're probably not cheap.
No.
I'm sure certain residuals go up as far as like certain things too. And I mean, I might be wrong, but
I wonder if that was why it took them so long to put the second season out on DVD. Seems like they always do that, though.
Yeah, I generally try to wait for a complete set.
Yeah.
Byron Dunbar wants to know, do you think M. Night's Tales from the Crypt would have been boss? Yeah, I have to think about that one because it would depend on what type of stories he would tell, where he would go with it. It sounded exciting, but then there was the problem with John Kassir wasn't asked to come back, and
Well, I don't think they had the rights to the Crypt Keeper.
yeah, he was kind of annoyed about the whole thing, and I think he made it pretty public about it, kind of like Doug Bradley. But yeah.
To me, it's not Tales from the Crypt, it's the Crypt Keeper.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really,
it's you could have called an anthology series.
Yeah, you could have called it any goddamn thing you wanted. It wouldn't have mattered at that point. It's like, you can't get the Crypt Keeper, let's not call it Tales from the Crypt.
And
call it M. Night Shyamalan's Shyamalama Ding Dong for all I care.
It seems to me like a lot of Hollywood just goes by the seat of their pants, and they sit around in these meetings and they're like, oh man, what show can we resurrect? Yep, Tales from the Crypt. Nobody is in that meeting and says, can we get the rights to it? Do you know anything about that? Do you think maybe we should have legal sit in here with us? I don't know what they do, but it seems to me like there's all these franchises that have legal issues, and you would think that these studios have their crack legal teams, which they're legion of having, that they would have somebody there that would go, well, let us check into that. Nope, we can't do it. But it seems like they go ahead with these projects, and then it's like, oops, we can't get the rights. God damn it, we're not going to do it now. And as Farm Girl says, butt chugging, probably. More than likely. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like a no-brainer. If I'm pitching a show, I'm going to have my bases covered. Like, I'm going to talk to an entertainment lawyer. I'm going to have them look into it if there's a question, because, I might have a question. Well, in my case, I want to revive a show that was on NBC in the early 70s for like 2 minutes called Circle of Fear. So if I wanted to bring that to Netflix as an anthology, I would have to go to an entertainment lawyer and go, hey, NBC had this show, Circle of Fear. Loved it as a kid. Want to do it, want to pitch it. Can I? Does somebody own the rights? Why don't we do this legwork? I just don't get it. I don't understand. Maybe you guys have some insight onto that. Like, Tom, maybe you have a further clarification of why that doesn't happen.
On which part of it?
Yeah.
The legwork or the...
Yeah, on why don't they get the legal people involved? So I don't understand.
In the beginning, you mean? Or like...
Yeah, like why, before you go to the trouble of getting M. Night Shyamalan or, whomever to direct it, why don't you have your ducks in a row?
Well, and here's my question is, I don't know what the hell is going on with the rights, because I'm trying to figure it out. Because wasn't it supposed to be on TNT?
Oh, I can't recall. Any of you guys?
It was supposed to be on TNT, and HBO ran it when they had the Crypt Keeper. My thing is I don't know who has the rights to the Crypt Keeper, or what the problem is that they couldn't use the Crypt Keeper, or if it was Shyamalan's idea to go with something completely new. As far as I knew, they had to come up with a new Crypt Keeper because they didn't have the rights. So I have no idea, unless somebody out there knows better on that. But so I think that was their whole plan was, we're going to come up with a new Crypt Keeper. It's going to be fun. Well, I don't think they expected, although they should have expected, a backlash from fans going, no Crypt Keeper, no Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm out,
Yeah, I mean, they don't think anything through. And it amazes me that half of them are still in business. And Hollywood be like, what the hell do you know? You just write on a little fucking website. What do you know? Great, yeah, what do I know? I've just been watching movies. I went to school for this shit. I don't know as much as you guys, but I do know when I see poor decision making.
Yeah, right?
Molly, Mecca?
Yeah. No, it does sound like poor decision making a lot.
I mean, I think the entire idea of them doing that show was probably not the best idea, even if they had the rights. Because of all the people to have do it, I just don't know if Shyamalan was even remotely the right choice. Like, tonally, I don't think he could have pulled off the show that fans would have wanted.
Yes, I agree. I mean, because he didn't, because Molly, and I always forget the name of the Paul Giamatti film that he did that I was so deeply disappointed with, Lady in the Water.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was his attempt at a fairy tale for his child. And he couldn't really muster that. So how could we expect him to do an anthology series where it's basically telling stories? Not that he doesn't tell stories, but you get what I'm getting at, I guess.
Well, here's what I'm kind of getting what you're saying, and I think I'm going to add this to it is, here's the problem with having M. Night Shyamalan hooked up to this, even if you don't have a Crypt Keeper. Okay, and yeah, Tales from the Crypt, they're all based on the EC comics, which had several different titles, not just Tales from the Crypt. But point being, with M. Night Shyamalan's name attached to it, you have a new expectation now. And like what you're saying, even if he doesn't write every episode, because I think he was just supposed to be a show producer, and I think he was probably going to direct maybe 1 or 2 episodes or something, is I think the deal. But so really he was going to be probably just there as an overseer, not even really that hands-on, I don't think, as far as like writing every episode or anything like that. But regardless, people see his name attached to it. I get what you're kind of saying is, people have an expectation going in, then they're going to be like, oh, so are we going to get a twist at the end of every episode now? Is that the way this is going to be? Is that going to be the gimmick, or what's the deal here? So I don't think it would have I don't think it would have worked. I really don't. Susan, Mecca, do you guys have any more to add to that?
Well, I just don't know why they didn't go with like what. Why didn't they go with Vault of Horror or Haunt of Fear and just introduce a new character if they're going to go with the Tales from the Crypt route? Because I mean, yeah, you really can't redo the Crypt Keeper. I mean, you could, but
if you can't have him, like you said, just borrow another name from one of the other EC titles. Don't
exactly.
Yeah,
and then that would be great for like the EC horror fans like me who know these characters, and it's not that hard, like the guy from from the Vault of Horror was pretty much just a guy in a robe, and then you had the witch from Haunt of Fear. So if I'm remembering them correctly, it wouldn't be that difficult just to make a new character and appeal to like that little percent of fan base, right?
Right, and you have M. Night's name attached to it then too, on top of it. Luke,
I get why they attach these guys. I mean, if you would do what Mecca said and you attach M. Night, you might have a winning combination, provided he stayed as an executive producer.
Right. What were you going to say, Luke? Sorry.
That's okay. It just, since they knew they weren't going to have the rights, do you think that maybe that's why they went for M. Night Shyamalan? Because like, hey, we got a big name. Don't you guys want to give us the rights now, or we can make a better argument for them? And if that was the case, I think whoever they were doing that to just blinked.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the rights situation is or what the deal was, because that's kind of what a lot of that hinges on, I'm sure. And at this point, I don't know if it's more so what you're saying, Luke, or if it was on the other end of like, okay, we can't use the Crypt Keeper. We got to get another big name attached to this. If it was that kind of a thing. So it could have been one or the other, depending on, and then if they decided, even if they had the ability to use the Crypt Keeper and they decided not to, that's just bad business, because that's the only third option I could think of.
Yup.
Mm-hmm. Joshua Nystrand has a question. He's like, Ghostbusters 3 has been revived. Any chance Spider-Man 4 will be?
No.
Oh, probably not.
The most you can hope for is maybe somebody will do a comic of it someday.
Yeah.
Elseworld comic kind of thing. Or
I don't see it happening. That ship has sailed for Sam Raimi. I mean, I would love to see him come back to the Marvel universe or even DC. I would love to see him do it. But I think that ship has sailed for him, which is a shame.
Yeah, I don't think Sony's going to let anybody do anything else besides whatever their plans are for the current guy that they have in there.
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland.
Yeah. Yep. So that's how that stands. Anybody have any thoughts to add to that?
No, you pretty much nailed it there. It's
Yeah.
the ship sailed. There's no way Sony's going back to that in any way. And like I said, you might get lucky and see it in a comic book. I doubt they'd even do like an animated version of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other podcast, that whole debacle, because now Avi Arad has come out and said that, yep, he feels bad about forcing Sam's hand for Spider-Man 3. Because he's like, for all these years, Sam has been taking the onus on himself. And he's finally come out and said, you know, maybe I should have waited on Venom.
Hindsight's 2020.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to take anybody's, like, you know, good for them on Sony for what they did with Venom. It's breaking box office records in China right now. It's the only thing that stood in Halloween's way of having the biggest October opening ever, which, you know, any other, it would open up any other time the same amount probably, but I haven't seen the movie yet. I just know it's kind of a final nail in the coffin of probably any more Marvel Sony team ups anytime soon. I think after the next couple Spider-Man movies, their next Spider-Man movie and the Avengers movie is done, we'll get a Spider-Man 3 with Tom Holland, but it'll be completely made by Sony and won't have any Marvel attachment to it whatsoever. So, and that's a whole other podcast. So
Yeah.
but I believe there's a video on the main channel that covers a lot of what would have been in Spider-Man 4 if you want to check that out.
Patrick Olinger says, will we get a Scream 5? Well, David Arquette came out recently and said he'd be down for it.
He wants to wrestle, though.
Well, yeah, and that the death match. Wow. Yeah, so David Arquette would be on board with it. The thing of it is getting the other people on board with it now. You know, depending upon what they're doing, where they are in their careers. You know, because I know Neve Campbell was given the script of the Child's Play remake, and she passed.
Good God.
Yeah.
If she's passing, then that means it's got to be real bad. Because no offense, it's not like she's getting phone calls left and right, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, Molly,
nothing against her or anything, but
were you a Scream fan? What do you think? Do you think Scream 5 will ever see it, you know, ever make it to the silver screen?
Me, I loved Scream 1, 2, and 3 when they first came out. I have a love-hate relationship with Scream ever since those movies because they changed horror for the better and worse in so many ways. Andre fucking hates Scream with a passion. When Scream 4 came out, I thought that was the perfect way. Plus, it had Wes Craven involved. It was also the perfect way to comment on remakes. So if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I think that's the where it should be left, to be honest with you. I have not seen the MTV series. I tried watching it 3 times. I couldn't get past the first 15 minutes. It just was just so annoying to me. I don't know why, but it just felt like too much too soon to me, I guess.
Well,
which isn't.
Now they're bringing out the big guns. Tony Todd is going to be on season 3.
It's still going.
Yep, of Scream. Yep. It's coming back to MTV. Tony Todd's attached to it. Molly,
how can they only be on season 3? The thing's been around since Scream, not that long after Scream 4.
They took a hiatus.
I'd say.
Molly, what do you think about Scream? Do you like the franchise? Do you think that there'll be a Scream 5?
I love the franchise. I just watched it last month for 31 Days of Horror. And I think 4 was a good way to end it. I think that there is stuff that they could do with the 5th one, but they ended it at such a good place in 4. I think it would be weird if they continued now that Wes is gone. And with the TV show, I actually don't mind the TV show. I just don't think it's really a Scream show because it feels more like a mashup of Scream and Friday the 13th. Like even the mask feels like a mashup of the 2 masks and the like story behind who the killer is more Friday the 13th. But I don't know I don't think there should be a 5. I think 4 was a good place to stop it. They can continue it with the TV show if they want. But I think 4 was like the right tone that it needed to end on.
No, and that's what turned me off about the show too, besides just the fact of how it just felt like kind of like it's kind of a remake, but it just felt like chintzy and cheap and wonky, like a fan film. And then the mask really bothered me. I'm like, why? And I don't know if I'm right. Somebody out there, if they know, or Luke or Susan or any of you guys know, what was the deal with the mask? Was it because they only had the rights for the movies? Because I know the original deal, they only paid like $50 or whatever it was for the rights. Because the deal was that the company, I can't remember the company that owns them, but it's a Halloween company that does them every year. They've done them for years. And the deal was that they got the rights to say they're the official Scream masks from then on out. Was there not a deal for the TV show, or did they just want to do something different?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. That is, I have no idea on that one.
Because to me, the way they got the mask, at least from what I remember, it was like, why are they doing that? That kind of defeats the purpose. Because, like, you said, Molly, it's more of a Friday the 13th kind of thing. To me, the mask reminded me more of Michael Myers.
Or like almost the old school stuff that you'd see bank robbers wear.
Right. Yeah. It just, I don't know. It felt dumb to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking it too much, but I didn't know if there was a reason why they didn't use the original mask. Because I don't care if you remake it, but why not just use the original mask? It was perfect.
I could be remembering the show wrong since it's been quite a hiatus for them. But I feel like it was supposed to be like a medical mask or something. Like, I don't know if I can't remember, like the guy was deformed or something, so it was a medical mask. Like the lady with
no face or whatever the hell it was called, that movie where she had to have that plastic face mask on.
Yeah, like I wish it was fresher in my mind, but I feel like that was it, and I don't know if that's the reason they did that mask or if they made that accommodation because they couldn't use the original.
Yeah,
but I think that was like the reason that they wrote into the story.
Well, I wish I knew. I mean, if somebody else, like I said, knows, because I could see like there being an issue with the rights, but I didn't know for sure.
It feels like so many times that even if there's no rights issues, they'll change something just to kind of distinguish themselves.
That's the case. It depends on if you're doing it proper or not.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they change the mask too in season 2, or they're going to in season 3? I thought I heard or something. I thought I heard something about a mask change anyway. I don't know if anybody knows.
It was the same in season 2, but I'm not. I didn't even know that they were going ahead with season 3. So.
Yeah, I heard this a long time. See, I thought it was done and over with now. So.
Yeah, it took them a while. Billy is actually the guy that's keeping up with that for the site. And I know that we got a lot of views because of Tony Todd being attached to it. So I guess they're hoping to bring in a horror icon to get more eyes on it.
Hopefully they use him more than they used him in Hellfest, because he was advertised to be a big part of that movie, and he was not.
Well, you know how that happened, of course, because they probably got him to sell the property. Oh, well, we have Tony Todd attached. God damn it. Yes, let's do this movie. Tony's in it for 30 seconds.
Candyman.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
No, I was just saying Candyman.
Oh, yeah, Candyman, yeah.
Oh, but Penn Farm Girl does say, yes, it was a medical mask, and she does think it was a rights issue. So, and that's what I was wondering, since it was going from the medium of television or from movie to television. Yeah, they had the rights for the movie, but you didn't get the rights for a TV show. Now we want buco bucks, kind of thing. That's what I thought happened, maybe. Which is, if that's the case, I'll forgive him, but I can't forgive him for coming up with such a stupid mask. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. So yeah, was there any other good questions in the chat? Otherwise, probably should wrap this up here soon.
Yeah.
Let everybody get on with their holidays.
I don't see anything. I know there's a lot of Marvel talk in here. You know, while yes, some of Marvel does bleed into horror, that's probably more for the main channel or another podcast.
Or the main podcast, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to stick mostly to horror for this show, guys. But okay, well, while we're doing that, then, and we actually have still quite a few viewers here. Next week, we have a very special guest joining us. As long as the schedule doesn't change, Mr. Tommy McLaughlin is going to join us, and we're going to have you guys asking him questions in the chat. So be sure to join us. Of course, we probably won't be able to ask everybody's question. We'll do our best to get at least one question for people, you know, not multiple questions, and try and get as many as we can in the time lot we have, the time allowed we have with him. I'll have more details on that, but we want to get that out there. So be sure to join us next week. Tell your friends, tell your mother, tell everybody. Tommy McLaughlin is going to be joining us as a guest here on the Goddesses of Gore. So kind of like a Thanksgiving present, but after the fact. So yeah, that's going to be fun. And if you don't know who Tommy McLaughlin is, you should if you're listening to this show. He, of course, is the director of Friday the 13th Part 6, and Sometimes They Come Back, and so many other things, and he's a master of horror. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I do have an interview with him on the main channel if you want to check it out to get to know him. And then come join us and ask him some questions. So we're going to have him on. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Tyler Bioshock says he had an earlier question about adaptation. I didn't see it in the chat. I apologize, Tyler. What did you want to ask?
Yeah, we can probably take one more. I'm trying to find it here, but I don't know. If you can repost it, Tyler, then that'd be easier. Yeah, actually, I'm one of those, I don't mind if people comment more than once. If you actually tag at Midnight's Edge After Dark in it, then it's easier for me to see, because then otherwise I think you guys are just cross talking amongst yourselves. So yeah, it's kind of tough to find questions sometimes if you don't tag us, or at least one of us. But yeah, I'm not seeing it here.
He said he'll copy it.
Okay, so yeah, we'll take that one more. But yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know who all is going to be joining us of your cavalcade over there.
Actually, next week, let me look at my editor's calendar. From 1428, we are set to have Tiffany Ailman, one of my writers on the cast. She is our resident Dario Argento guru.
Yeah.
So she will be on with me next week.
Okay, well, hopefully we have some time to talk to her as well. But yeah, once Tommy gets on here, we'll try and do our best to get everybody's questions we can, as I said. So, but we can't get everything. And be respectable. Don't ask no silly questions. You know? I mean, not that he's a very controversial guy or anything like that, but we don't need to ask him, you know, some stupid questions. So.
Hey, Zach Frederick, we've been going back and forth about Ash versus Evil Dead and Bruce coming back. I know, buddy. I know you want Bruce to come back. I hear you, but it's not going to happen. I don't think at this point in time there's any plans to do anything with the franchise. There's been some talk about perhaps merging the worlds of Mia from 2013 with the Ghost Speeders. There's been some talk in the air. But as for Bruce coming back, it's not going to happen. He's been very, very adamant about it. He's done. He's moved on. Yeah, that's the status of the franchise right now. Fede Alvarez has come out and said that, you know, he doesn't have a script in place for Evil Dead 2. That doesn't mean it won't happen, but he'd rather move on with Don't Breathe 2. So this is the talk about the franchise, and that's what's been happening.
Tyler reposted his question. Are you okay adapting horror fiction in name alone? I love Hill House, but it's not the Shirley Jackson, and some of its weakest moments were adaptations of iconic scenes from the book/movie. If you're going to do something, you're going to do it totally different, then I say try and do something original. I don't mind how, like, Tarantino is, like, inspired by stuff, and he may call it something that's like Inglorious Bastards, something that's been named that before, but it's almost a completely different thing on its own. That I don't mind so much. But if you're gonna do Frankenstein, do Frankenstein. You know what I mean? Don't do something strange and out there and call it Frankenstein just because you know people will know it's a popular name. Susan, what do you think?
You know, there's been a lot of complaints about Hill House not being true to Shirley Jackson's vision. And, you know, that leads me back to just taking the name of a movie like, or a TV show like Penny Dreadful and slapping it on there so it's name recognition and it'll bring the, you know, the viewers to the yard, so to speak. I can see if you do an adaptation and you borrow from the book and you blend it into some things that could have been in the book. But if you're going out and you're branding it as an adaptation, then, you know, there's some questions for me as to, well, this really isn't what you've said. It's like clicking, you know, clickbait. But that's how I feel on that particular subject.
It is. It's cinematic clickbait. That's a good way to put it.
But I don't know, though, specifically if Netflix came out and said this is based on Shirley Jackson's book. I don't think they did.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't remember either.
Molly, do you know? Or Mecca?
I feel like it was mentioned at least. I don't know, because it's like there's, I mean, obviously Hill House is where it takes place, and like the names of some of the characters, at least the first names, are the same. The Cranes, I think, is the same. But since The Haunting of Hill House is something that was done a couple times before this point, I'm more okay with them doing something different. Even though they used the same name and stuff, like I'm more okay with it because they gave us something we haven't seen before, when I think there's been 2 previous adaptations from the book. If it was the first time it was being adapted, I probably would be more upset about it, but I don't know. I can see where they would be coming from by being upset about it not being the book.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the show's amazing too, so I'm more willing to be okay with it. If the show was crap, I probably would be pissed about it.
Well, Tyler says that he says with every show credit, it sure states it's based on the novel. And it's all character names from the book, and it had recreations of a few famous moments. But he says it started off on the wrong foot for him. I mean, I know the big controversy with the show was the overhype that Netflix did with it by saying people were fainting and all that stuff. That got a lot of people pissed off. But majority of what's been said about it is just like Molly said, it's very flattering. People love it. There's already people that want like season 2 or something. And I know for us personally at the site, that is our recaps of it by Carla Davis. They get huge views, like out of this world views.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so.
Same here.
Yeah, I haven't gotten Netflix in like 2 years.
Well, I have Netflix. I just haven't had time to watch anything. That's the biggest problem with me. Yeah.
I lost sleep just so I could play Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, I wish I could play Red Dead Redemption right now. Well, like I haven't really had a chance to, like, during this whole move thing. I finally just got the internet to a speed where I can connect to you guys. So.
Well, and congratulations to you on 10K subscribers.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, congratulations.
That happened in the interim of our last episode, and now.
Yeah.
Speaking of episodes, though, I think it's probably about time we wrap this up. What do you guys think? I asked before if anybody had to go, and they said no, so we stuck around for a little bit longer to answer some more questions for you guys. Hopefully you like that. Remember to come back next week for Tommy McLaughlin. That's going to be an excellent show. Anything else anybody has to add or talk about before we go? Susan?
No, nothing new here.
Mecca?
No.
Molly, why don't you tell everybody where people can find you outside of 1428 Elm?
Well, you can find me on Twitter, if I can remember my Twitter handle.
Blogging Banshee.
Yes, thanks. It's at Blogging Banshee, and on Instagram, it's at blogging.banshee. And like I said, I write for 1428. I write for a couple other places. I have my own website that's just thebloggingbanshee.com. So yeah, if you're into horror, that's pretty much all I do is post shit about horror and animals, because I have a zoo in my house. So
there you go. Luke, anything to add, or any new place to find you other than your normal hangouts?
Nope. You can still find me on 1428elm.com. You can find me on Twitter at Big Luke Lucas, and you can find me on Instagram at Big Luke 1980.
All right, Susan, anything coming up for 1428?
Not offhand. I mean, we're just doing our business as usual. I know we have a episode 9 of Haunting of Hill House, that recap that's coming up. We're looking into some different things come the beginning of 2019. There may be some changes that we're doing, and we may be having a best of movies list, so you might want to stay tuned to that. Other than that, you can read all about the world of horror, news, views, what have you at 1428elm.com. We're on Twitter at 1428_elm. We're also on Instagram at 1428_elm, and we're on Facebook. And for me personally, you can find me at Susan on the Ledge on Twitter, at De Facto Scribe on Instagram, and I'm also on Facebook. And when I'm not here, when I'm not writing, when I'm not trying to pretend like I'm Oprah, you can catch me at Nerdrotic Podcast every Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we do Friday Night Tights, and we give you our news and views in the genre-verse of pop culture.
All right. And keep listening or looking out for an interview that Mecca and I did here a little while back. She's gonna pop up on her Patreon first, and then I think it'll be on the main channel. I'm not 100% sure yet, but we got a chance to talk to Lisa Wilcox of Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 5. So be sure to check that out when it comes out. And Mecca, where can everybody find you then?
My YouTube channel is MeccaRandom42. My Patreon is Random Game User 42. My Twitter is Random Monkey. You can probably just find it under Mecca Random, YouTube, Harpy as well. I'm here most podcasts as well. Where else am I? I think that's it.
Well, you got your own channel, and you pop up here, so you pop up wherever you pop up, and pop.
I'm usually in chats of other people's streams too.
Yeah, and we're glad that you made your move safe and sound, and you got to come back and join us just in time for the Goddesses of Gore, and you'll be here next week, of course, with Tommy McLaughlin, so be sure to check us out, guys. Tell your friends, like I said. I'll try and post a thing about it probably early, so you guys can share the link for it when we go live next week. So, all right. We want to thank everybody for joining us out there in YouTube land. If it wasn't for you guys, we couldn't do this. And as far as Thanksgiving going, thank you for being our listeners, our Patreon people. If you're out there, thank you so much. I know Tyler just told me he's our new Patreon $15 guy, which he shouldn't do, because that's more than I think I've paid you for working, Tyler. He's one of our writers. And he'll probably pop up on the show one of these days. But yeah, for all you guys out there for being there for us, if it wasn't for you, we would be able to do this. So thank you so much. That's my thing. That's what I'm thankful for this year. Anybody else got anything to say before we close out this Goddesses of Gore?
Yep. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Like, to piggyback on what Tom said, We do this out of a love for horror. We try to give you something new and different. We try to inform you with the passion that we all have. I appreciate each and every one of you coming in on a regular basis, listening to us, sharing our podcasts. It's really great because we're, I kind of liken us to like B movie status. If it weren't for the fans, we would be nowhere. So
It's true,
thanks
though.
a lot, you guys.
I don't mean to laugh. I just laughed at the B movie status part.
Well, I mean, hey, yeah, it's true. I'm proud of it. I wear that badge.
All right. Anybody else want to say thanks before we go, Mecca?
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate everybody who comes over from my channel over here, and everybody that everybody else sends over to me. You guys are the reason why I've been working my butt off to get it on the internet as quick as I have, and been frustrated with the Wi-Fi hotspots and everything else. But yeah, I can't wait to do the 10,000 subscriber stream with everybody. I'll probably do a little stream in between now and then. I'll figure out a good day to plan it for. Maybe Saturday might be a good time. But yeah, thank you guys so much. You guys are absolutely amazing and brilliant.
And did you tell everybody to catch you on Friday Night Tights, Susan?
Yep.
I thought you did, but I couldn't remember. Molly and Luke, did you have anything to say before we go?
Thanks for keep having me on the podcast. This is a lot of fun for me. It's a lot of fun to talk to you guys. It's a lot of fun to answer the questions. And, I hope to keep coming on.
All right. I'm sure we can see about. But if we keep having so many guys, will it be the Goddesses of Gore anymore?
I know.
You have to start wearing a dress. I'm not going to do it.
I mean, I've mentioned I have wigs.
That's true. You did. So you're game. That's cool. All right. We can work with that. And Molly, thanks for stopping by and being your first time here on the show. We had a great time with you.
Yes, thank you guys for having me, and thanks to everyone who listens. And I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. And of course, to go along with my 1428 article, I hope you are not on the menu this Thanksgiving.
That's a great article too. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was a great topic for the show. I like that.
Thank you.
All right. So thanks so much, guys, for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Goddesses of Gore here on Midnight's Edge After Dark.